Untitled Chapter.
Hey, Tim, it's been a little while.
Good to see you again.
It has been a while.
You're so good. You're so good.
Absolutely, you too. You have a job to do. How are you? Me too. Looks different here. What happened?
We painted.
Cheers.
The theater seating is gone.
Yes, it's true. Well, this part looks familiar, but the walls behind me look different.
So they did that just recently.
Yeah, well, we were in here in December, I think, right? I think that was our last meeting, 3 months ago. Yeah, I feel better.
Yeah, right.
Oh, look, I have a pin. I feel
Yeah.
like I've been doing this for 9 years.
Is that right? That's the first time. I thought it was just for the new people.
Yes, it is for the special.
It is special people, right? I owe you a big one for this one. You've been on for 9 years, so you can help me along.
Well, I'll do the best I can.
I did it in Vigo for a little while.
Oh, did you?
It's been 15 years.
Yeah, is it? Oh
But it
my
was fun.
gosh.
I'm a developer section for the other side.
Right,
too,
right.
so
But that's good that you have that
I
perspective.
think so. Helping Vigo was kind of nice to move that one.
Higo.
Yeah.
Higo.
but
Do you still live?
I don't live there, but I still have buildings there.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my first one. Hello, Miss Sir.
Hello, sweetheart.
I still love Vigo.
I know. I think this is.
Good evening. We'll get the meeting started in a few minutes. We're just waiting for one commissioner to join us. And before we start the meeting, we're going to swear in the entire new planning commission that was reappointed and appointed actually last night. Then we will start the meeting and open the meeting with roll call. Just hold tight for a few more minutes. Thank you. No, strictly in regards to pilots, because I didn't know what you were. I gotta talk to you in regards to.
Yeah, they're saying something about that too. There's a team meeting in a couple of weeks. So
No, not that I know of. But a lot of times, who knows? No.
I know your thoughts on that, but we'll get together and they want me to drive the bus.
Okay.
Which I can't do. Because it's a diverse group. As you may have surprised.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. How you been? Good. Yeah. How's everything at the Riker? Right. True. Yeah. Oh. Okay. You did.
Before that,
Yeah. Yeah. Bernita's going to be about 30 minutes late. We're just going to swear in who's ever here, and she won't be able to vote. I'm just waiting for Chris Northcross to show up. I don't know where he is. He usually comes in a few minutes late. So. There's quite a few items on the agenda. Yeah. 8:30? Not really. No, they're usually shorter. Yeah. We haven't had one since December. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. Very calming it's, I think the community is like cautiously waiting. Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, almost definitely. Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. There he is. Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, I figured as much. Okay.
Good evening. Garland Doyle, I'm the city clerk. So what we're going to do is swear everybody in at the same time. So if you would all just stand up, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear or affirm
I solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
the Constitution of the State of Michigan,
and the Charter of the City of Pontiac, Michigan,
and the Charter of the City of Pontiac, Michigan,
and that I will discharge the duties of
and I will discharge the duties of
Pontiac City Planning Commissioner
Pontiac City Planning Commissioner
of the City of Pontiac, Michigan,
of the City of Pontiac, Michigan,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, we will call to order the first meeting, March 2nd, 2022. I will introduce everyone. We have some new members tonight. To my far left is Donovan Smith, planner. To my next left is Mike McGinnis, Commissioner Christopher Northcross, and then to my far right is Vern Gustafson, and then Commissioner Tim Shepard, Commissioner Mona Parlov, Commissioner Lucy Payne, and then I am Ashley Fagley. Vern, roll call, please.
Yes, Chair Figley,
Present.
Commissioner McGinnis,
Present.
Commissioner Northcross,
Present.
Commissioner Harlov,
Present?
Commissioner Payne,
Present.
Commissioner Shepard. Commissioner Duvall will probably be tied up and will be probably joining us around 6:30.
Thank you.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is amendments and approval of the agenda. I would like to move up items 6.2 and 6.3, just to pair them with a special exception permit earlier in the meeting. So the SPR 21-21 site plan review for 788 East Walton Boulevard will come after the special exception permit SEP 22-01. And then SPR 22-01 site plan review will come after, switch that. So 1272 Baldwin will come directly after the site plan review for 1272 Baldwin, which is 6.3. So 5.1 and then 6.3, and then 5.2 for 788 East Walton Boulevard will then come, and then 6.2 will be SPR 21-21 site plan review. May I have a motion for that?
I make a motion to make an adjustment in the agenda for the routing that you just mentioned.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Support.
May I have a vote?
Yes, Commissioner Parlov,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Northcross,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Payne,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Shepard,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner McGinnis,
Yes to approve.
and Chair Fegley.
Yes to approve.
Okay, motion passes to amend the agenda.
And the next on the agenda is meeting minutes for review from the December 1st, 2021 meeting notes. Christopher Northcross, do you have any comments or questions you'd like to change from the
No
minutes?
comments or questions?
Thank you. I know Mike and Tim were not at the meeting, so I'm assuming you wouldn't have any comments or changes.
I read them all. It's very long. Very exact. I salute the minute taker.
Yeah, Ms. Snowden.
Mona, do you have any comments or questions?
No comments, questions, or changes.
Okay. Lucy, do you have any?
No comments or questions or changes either.
Okay, I do not either. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Support?
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Parlov,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Northcross,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Shepard. Oh, that's right, you're abstain? Okay. Commissioner McGinnis, abstain?
Since it's the trend, abstain due to not serving on the commission for the meeting in question.
Correct. And Vice Chair Fegley.
Yes to approve.
And, Commissioner Payne.
Yes to approve the minutes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, first on the agenda is SEP 22-01 special exception permit. And then we're also going to hear the presentation for the site plan review. I'll then open up the meeting to any public comments if anyone would like to speak about this proposal.
If I may, before we get a little bit of a history or a little bit of background in regards to planning for our new members of the Planning Commission that have been appointed last night, along with just also remembering in regards to for our existing members. So in each zoning district, there are uses that are permitted by right, meaning they're permitted to be in that district, and then there are certain uses that we call a special exception or exemption permit or a special land use that does require approval from the Planning Commission, and they are the final approval. It does this type of special exemption permit does not go on to City Council for their review and approval. And as we mentioned, we're going to present findings for as relates to the SEP, special exemption permit, and also site plan review, and then open it up to a public hearing as relates to the SEP. With that, Donovan?
Thank you, Ern. Commissioners, welcome. Congratulations. So our first... There we go. All right, so our first item today is SEP 2201 Special Exemption Permit, and then we will transition to the Site Plan Review SPR 2201 Site Plan Review. This is for the address 1272 Baldwin Avenue, a proposed Baldwin Avenue quick stop. This parcel is currently zoned C1 local business, and it is for a proposed retail gas station. And we will be discussing the preliminary site plan review, the special exemption permit. The use as defined in our ordinance is titled Automotive Service Commercial, and then the supplementary use would be for retail sales gas station located in the C1 local business district. It's a new clicker. All right. Moving forward, the site currently is a vacant parcel located at the intersection of south of East Yale and east of Baldwin Avenue. The property is designated C1 local business, and the applicant, as I mentioned, is proposing a new construction building, concrete parking lot that would accommodate 6 gas dispensers and the canopy. There are no alcohol sales or anticipated at this location. As the site is C1 local business, the use for automotive service or gas stations is a special exemption in the C1 district, which is why we are holding this public hearing today for that use. So as you can see, on your screen, the area is highlighted by the red hashed rectangle. You can see that that lot is currently vacant. To the north being Yale Avenue, the south would be East Ypsilanti, and the road immediately to the west or left, that would be Baldwin Avenue. If you are driving northbound, the image you see on the north is what you would see on the road, and you can see indicated where the site would be. And then to the south, or driving southbound, you can see that red area to the left, where that indicates that the gas station would be on that corner and visible heading southbound and northbound. Just some details regarding the C1 local business district. It's a mixed-use district designed to accommodate housing units for smaller households and to provide services that cater the needs to the surrounding residential neighborhood. Businesses which might tend to be a nuisance to the immediate surrounding residential development are excluded, even though the goods or services offered might be in the convenience category or classification. The regulations are designed to protect and enhance the value of abutting and surrounding residential land. To these ends, these regulations to establish standards comparable to the standards for residential districts, resulting in similar area, height, and placement regulations. Regarding the future land use designation for the site, again, you can see where that site is located on the screen, highlighted by the red rectangle. The future land use is designated as an entrepreneurial, industrial, commercial, and green. These areas are either adjacent to existing light industrial facilities, in which areas are historically hosted light industrial or warehousing areas, or are in areas where access to main transportation routes, both rail and state trunk lines, create market potential for light industrial use. There we go. Apologies. So when we review sites and the uses that are associated with them, there are certain zoning criteria that we look at. Briefly, I will touch on the one relevant to this particular use, which is section 2.509, which is the automotive service commercial use. Within that criteria, there are two that apply. The first would be locating gas pumps a minimum 30 feet from the property line. While the plan as it is submitted does not meet that criteria, it immediately does not exclude them from the use. They just have to adjust their plan that meets that 30-foot distance. And then the second would be screening adjacent to residential uses. The plan does meet that requirement. And then I will double back to some of these other uses when we get to the actual site plan. As mentioned, the use is automotive service commercial. These are places of business serving auto-related needs, including but not limited to gas stations, car wash, mechanic, offering routine service, minor repairs, or customization. The zoning ordinance, section 6.303, outlines standards for approval of special exemption permits. Those standards are outlined on your screen and commissioners in your packets. The sites must be harmonious with the general principles and objectives of the comprehensive master plan. They must be designed, constructed, operated, and maintained as to be harmonious and appropriate with the appearance of the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. They may not change the essential character of the area in which it is proposed. They are to not be hazardous or disturbing to the existing or future uses in the same general vicinity, and will be a substantial improvement to the property in the immediate vicinity and community as a whole. Five, they must be served adequately by essential public facilities and services, such as highways, streets, police, fire protection, drainage structures, refuse disposal, water and sewage facilities. They may not involve uses or activities, processing materials and or equipment that will be a detriment to any person, property, or the general welfare of the area. And then lastly, they must maintain all proposed structures, equipment, or materials in a readily accessible manner for police or fire and protection. And this proposed use does meet all of the requirements specific to special exemption approvals and permits. And then I will pause the presentation here and then allow the commissioners to ask questions, and we can, if you want, Commissioner Chair, if you would like to hold the public hearing, and then we can continue to the site plan.
You can just continue the site plan. Let's present the whole project as a whole.
Okay. All right, so moving on, this is, we're going to continue with the site plan related to the site. So on your screen, you can see this is the same site south of East Yale and east of Baldwin Avenue. The red rectangle indicates the property lines. In the bottom right of that rectangle, you can see that white box, which indicates where the proposed structure will be. The heavily graded gray area would be the surface parking, and the canopy, if you can see it, is the rectangle to the left of that red square, which shows where the canopy will be. Here in the landscaping plan, you can also see there is a home, which is indicated to the furthest right. There's another white rectangle. Between that home and the subject site is an alley. The alley is used by the residents for access to and in and out of their property. And then there is a proposed berm between that alley and the parking lot and associated trees that meet the landscaping requirements for screening and buffering between the subject site and the alley itself. The applicant did provide floor plans. Those floor plans are on the screen, and they do show where the coolers and shelving racks, storage, and register areas would be, typical of a gas station development. They have submitted elevations. We do have some comments regarding the elevations in terms of they have provided rather consistent one material elevations, and we are recommending that there is some slight design changes that would give more function and character to the structure. I apologize, this is our new clicker. And you can also see the north and south elevation. Yeah, I'm almost done. Similar to a special exemption permit, site plan reviews also have standards for approval. Those are circulation that require proper relationship between the existing streets and highways within the vicinity. It does comply with those criteria. The buildings and structures proposed to be located upon the premises are situated as to minimize adverse effects upon the owners and occupants of adjacent properties. It does comply with that criteria. Natural features of the landscape shall be retained as possible, where they furnish a barrier screen or buffer between the project and adjoining properties. It does comply with that criteria. And then lastly, site layout and screening. Any adverse effects of the proposed development and activities emanating therefrom and that affect adjoining residents or owners shall be minimized by appropriate screening, fencing, landscaping, setbacks, and location of the building. It does comply with that criteria as well. When site plans are submitted to the Planning Division, we conduct what is called a technical report, and we include that with our staff findings. These are comments that we share back to this commission, the public, and the developer that for consideration and resubmissions and subsequent plans. Those are as follows. They must further comply with parking space requirements. Those speak to the design of the stalls themselves. There was not a lighting plan provided. It is not required if there is not additional lighting, but they will need to resubmit theirs. A photometric plan would need to be submitted. There is no proposed on-site storage. All proposed signage will require sign permits prior to installation. The parking space count and detail will also need to be confirmed and provided. The final site plan will require the landscaping seal, and they must demonstrate compliance with all landscaping requirements. A cross-section of the berm that is detailed or shown on the plans must be provided and approved. This is that berm between the actual canopy and the alley that I mentioned earlier. And then DPW will also have to approve the proposed landscaping in the right-of-way. And then they will also be responsible for the final engineering review associated with the site plan. And I believe this last one. And lastly, there are conditions to the final site plan approval. Some of those I mentioned, and some of those I will briefly provide new. The applicant will be required to comply with all specific use criteria associated with the automotive service use. The applicant is required to adhere to all site plan review criteria identified in the City of Pontiac zoning ordinance and the technical review report provided by the Planning Division. They must. There is a recommendation of Section 4.406 to install a 30-inch masonry or brick wall or shrubbery. This will be like a kick wall at the property line between Baldwin Avenue and East Yale. The civil and engineering plan review by the civil engineer and Department of Public Works must be approved for those planting proposed in the right-of-way and in the final site plan approval. Final site plan approval is also pending approval from the Waterford Fire Department. And then lastly, the final site plan approval must comply with all requirements outlined in the site plan technical report. And that concludes the site plan review as it relates to 1272 Baldwin Avenue.
Thank you. Is the applicant here this evening? Hi, please approach the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Dennis Benashak, D&M site, 401 Balsam, Carlton, Michigan.
Thank you. Do you have anything you'd like to add to the
Well,
presentation?
first of all, I'd like to congratulate you as a former planning commissioner in Bay City. I applaud your work. The first comment about the pumps, the canopy, the center line of the canopy is 30 feet off the property line, so that would put the pumps, which are in the middle of those islands, at that same distance. So I think we got that done. We can still kick it back a little bit if that's required. The wall issue, we based our design on an existing gas station at 1025 Perry. There is no wall at that location. There's just a curb at the back sidewalk. And that was our intent, was to replicate what was there. Do not know if that required any kind of a variance to let that happen. But we prefer to go that route if we can. Otherwise, we can build the knee wall. It's not a big deal. It's only going to be so wide.
Okay. All right, thank you. I will open the meeting to public comments. Please keep any public comments to a minimum of 2 minutes. We'll collect all the questions, and then at the end, we will answer them all. If anyone would like to speak about this project, please feel free to approach the podium. No? All right, I will close public comments and go to my fellow commissioners for any comments or questions. Commissioner McGinnis, do you have any comments or questions for the applicant?
It's always important when there's commercial activity directly connected or adjoined a neighboring residential property, and so that's applicable here. I'd be interested to hear the height of the intended berm, and with the eastern white pine that will be planted there, it'll be important to provide that screen not only for aesthetics and noise, but also just be able to keep the harmonious nature of a residential properties to benefit from that being their home, and that's impacted by light, that's impacted by just the hours of operation. It's obviously got the name of the Baldwin Quick Stop, if I've got that correct, but I was curious, and it's not germane to my decision, but just was curious if it's already known if there's an affiliation for a multinational gasoline or petroleum company, or will it be an independent operated gasoline company?
It will be an independent.
Okay. And I was trying to rack my brain about this parcel, about what it had been used for previously. I can only remember it as vacant land, but not going to change the outcome of this decision, but it's helpful to know historically what the neighborhood might have been used to, and therefore, when they purchased their house, for example, it was already actively in use for a certain commercial or entrepreneurial or green or industrial purpose. But I am willing to proceed with this. I inquired with council members if they had any other questions, and none arose. But the future land use calling for it being harmonious with that makes me feel comfortable with the proposal before us.
Thank you. Commissioner Cross, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, I do. First,
Can I answer the
Oh, yeah.
question? As far as the berm, we've got a 20-foot setback on that side, so if you run 1-on-3, that's 9 feet, and a 2-foot flat top. It's exactly what's called out. As far as the photometric goes, the canopy manufacturers don't do photometrics until they've actually got an order for a canopy. So it makes it really difficult on us to give you a photometric up front, but one will be provided once we get the contract signed. And right now, there's a billboard on this property. We can't find anything in the history that there was ever anything else there. And, there could be a bigger search or deeper search based on what city staff can find. But from what we've seen, it's just been a vacant lot. The billboard will be coming down as part of the renovation of the property. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Your name again, is it Mr.
Dennis Banashak.
Pinasha?
You can call me Banazak or Banazak. It all comes out the same.
Okay, sir. Thank you, and excuse my mumbling of your name, the pronunciation of your name. Thank you for thinking of Pontiac. My question is, why Pontiac? Why a gas station at that location? What? Just to understand the dynamics, and
It's all a numbers game in terms of where it makes sense to put one based on traffic counts. And this was an undeveloped site, which meant we didn't have to deal with anything that may have been there before. It was, pretty much prime property as far as we were concerned.
Now, this is for Mr. Gustafson.
Yes.
Are we keeping track of the total runoff of how we're affecting the rainwater runoff as we pave more and more areas? Are we keeping a account so that we're not overloading our sewers or anything like that?
Water systems. Yes, any of that would be evaluated very closely in regards to dealing with WRC, and they would review and assess those type of requirements and mandates as relates to stormwater issues and flow.
Okay.
And Commissioner, a lot of the approvals related to stormwater and drainage, they do cycle through the Water Resource Commission, and I believe the county has worked on a plan that addresses stormwater as a whole. So when they do those reviews, it supports and is in compliance with that greater plan.
Yeah. I would think this is a fairly small lot, that its contribution to everything would be fairly small, but it's the old thing about death by 1,000 cuts.
If I may, this is an issue for all communities.
Yes.
And we typically, in a situation like this where we're going to be paving practically the entire parcel, we'll put those storage underground. We might use a system that looks like a small doghouse, make rows of them to put the water in. There are other systems that we use, or other things we can do where we have pipe. In this instance, we don't have a lot of storm pipe in the ground because we've only got the one catch basin. So we'll probably be putting in a second catch basin of a much larger size to serve as a reservoir in order to make this work. And that catch basin will probably also contain an oil water separator for any of the glycol or hydrocarbons that end up coming in through the concrete.
Thank you. Thank you. From what I've seen, the plans were very professional, and thank you for thinking of Pontiac. Stop there. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Shepherd, do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you. My only question would be the materials used. It's just that is it block?
For the building?
Yeah.
Okay, what we have here is a building that was installed in Bay City, Michigan, my hometown, and that was what Bay City allowed. The architect is aware of the changes that need to be made. He's just been a little swamped because everybody's busy right now, and he couldn't get any of the updates done in time for this meeting. But he knows what he has to do.
What are the updates that was putting some kind of
Well, in terms of the materials alternating, the finishes, and I think there was a question with the building height was also an issue. I didn't pay much attention to those because those aren't my problems, those are his problems, but he knows, and I've had conversations with him on the phone. He apologized that he just couldn't get anything to me this week, so.
you're going to make it look nicer.
Well, yeah, we'll do whatever it takes to make you guys happy.
And then my other thing, you kind of answered it on the berm, so I kind of like the idea of a berm versus a wall, as long as it's doing what it's supposed to do.
We initially looked at utilizing the alley as an entrance into our site, but after realizing that the neighbors were using it as a parking area, we ruled that out and just went with the berm. It was a much cleaner design, and it doesn't rile the neighbors.
9 foot inside.
3 foot high berm.
3 foot high.
Or 3 foot high. What was the 9?
9, it's 1 on 3 slope. So 1 on 3 would be 3 on 9. So it rises 3 feet over 9 feet, 2 foot high top, and then back down the other side. So it's 9, 9, and 2.
Last question, I don't think you wanted it anyway, but I don't understand the 3-foot wall. Somebody could explain that. There's like a wall right on the front.
Yeah, what that represents is there is in our ordinance, there is requirement in regards to any parking areas that are abutting rights of way, that being Baldwin and Yale, that you do need to provide that type of treatment before the parking lot starts. So either you can do some landscaping or you can put up a 30-inch wall that kind of basically screens parked cars, a little bit of the
Headlight sweep.
yeah, basic, and also in regards to a little bit of the canopy, just to kind of again break it up in regards as you're driving down the road.
And they can do this with landscape?
They could,
We could put some boxwoods in. That would work out nice.
yeah.
And as I mentioned, they do have landscaping proposed in the right-of-way. Landscaping located in those areas do require approval from DPW. If DPW were not to approve that landscaping in the right-of-way, then the wall would probably be the next best option. We did have conversations where we asked for landscaping to be inside the property line versus outside in that right-of-way, and they indicated it will make the site tighter. So that solution would be if there is no landscaping in the right-of-way, it will be located, it would be used by having that wall.
And it can't go higher than 30 inches.
30 inches, correct.
Right.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Paulo, do you have any comments or questions?
I do. Good evening. Thank you, Dennis.
Good evening.
Are you still in Bay City? Did you drive all the way down?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I'm hoping the weather holds off.
yes, exactly. Do you own other gas stations? Is this part of?
I am not the owner. I'm just the engineer.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes more sense. So the owner's in Royal Oak, is that right? Based on what I'm seeing here?
Yeah, well, that's the business address for the attorney.
Oh,
I'm Mark Demers, I'm the attorney on the road. Mr. Talhadis is the owner of the station with several gas stations.
oh, great. Thank you for considering us. Do you have anything else in Pontiac right now? Okay, so I'm going to circle back around to the renderings for the building that is in front of us that is really not a representation of what's going to go on the site, correct?
Correct.
So how do I know what we're going to get?
It's going to be roughly the same envelope in terms of length, width, height. We'll make it fit the requirements for Pontiac. Like I said, this was just something that was already done and thrown in at the last minute. I've looked over some of the stuff that was in there. It doesn't appear to be that big a deal. Talking to the architect, he says he can make the changes He just didn't have the time to do it. So it will be done to meet the requirements of the city.
Okay, so are we don't know if we're going to get like a block, a brick. Are we going to get a sided building? We don't know yet.
Not yet. The worst case is probably what you're looking at there, with just being block. Say that? Small stone. Okay. Mr. Aladi says we're going to have a stone portion on the front of the building.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that as they're talking, I mean, the ordinance gets into quite a bit of detail in regards to understanding the base versus the middle versus the cornice and so forth. And that's detailed enough that we should be able to get some relief and some varying of materials and so forth once the architect has his chance to put his eyes on it.
I have another question, though, that I don't know if you necessarily have the answer, but it could be Vern or Donovan. Why is there only one door on this building? Why is there no second access point to leave?
I'm sure that there will be another access point. Once building plans come into our building department, that would be reviewed by our building official along with the inspectors. And also the trades, and that would be reviewed. And same thing with the fire department. They would be looking at it very closely too.
Okay. I think those are all my questions for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Payne, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, good evening and welcome to Pontiac.
Thank you.
One of the questions that I had is in regards to the gas station. What type of oil are you? What is it? Is this a mobile or is it a?
It depends.
Yes, please.
Please.
Please state your name and address for the record.
So, Jamil Hadis, 3169 Hathaway Avenue, Flint, Michigan. So, after the site plan approval, then we'll start working on the building, architecture, getting contract with companies. It depends on who's like offering better deals. Sunoco, Mobile, Marathon, and we haven't looked for that yet.
Okay. And what are you looking at a target date for this, for the beginning?
As soon as for the construction,
yes, please.
as soon as we get the approval, then we'll start moving forward.
Do you have a timeline of beginning and ending? I know.
It usually takes up to three months.
3 months?
Yep.
Okay. And then you decide at that time what type of company that it will be, right?
We're thinking Marathon.
Okay. And as far as your employees, were your employees be coming from the city or some?
It's a local.
Local?
Yep. So,
okay.
yeah.
How many employees are you looking at?
Usually four to five.
4 to 5. Okay. And were you able to speak with any of the residents around there, since there are homes there? Were you able to speak with any of the residents to get their opinion as to what their like a gas station coming there or auto service center?
It's with COVID. I don't feel safe going knocking on people's doors and talking, ask them.
Okay.
But I'm sure you guys, the city sent letters about they sent 400 feet with the radius to each resident that there is a new construction.
Yes, there is.
So if there had any comment, they'll be in here speaking about it.
Okay, were you able to tour the city to kind of look around to see what Pontiac has to offer, or
yeah.
and what you would have to offer the city?
Yes.
What could you offer the city?
We'll offer better deals, like our service is better. That's my thinking.
Okay, any parks maybe named after you?
I'm sorry?
Park? Would you like any a park named after you?
Yep. That's funny. But yeah, I think we should be doing.
Think about it, and then the next time we'll talk about it. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay. cars overnight, any overnight cars, will be parked on the streets, or is this just a oil station that you go through and you're not fixing cars? Am I correct?
Fixing cars?
You're not.
It's
gas
fueling station. Yep, it's just gas.
Okay. What kind of retail sales are you putting in there? Just basic
It's just
things that are in
basic.
gas?
Basic what people needs. Cooler,
Okay.
coffee, snacks, pops.
Okay.
No
Now-
beers, no alcohol.
Now, I'm noticing that there are a lot of gas stations around the city, which I'm hoping that we will start doing a little bit better at monitoring stations. My understanding, there are certain type of cigarettes or smokes or some kind of things that kids go into gas stations and buy. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
You talking about disposable vapes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's. I don't think we're carrying those. It's just another. It's going away.
Okay.
I think from the market. I'm not.
Okay.
In general.
Because we want to keep the kids safe in that area.
Yeah, I think it's going away in general, all over the places. They're banning it.
Okay. Okay, well, that's about it. Thank you so very much. I appreciate
You're welcome.
your time and your interest in the city here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. What are your hours of operation going to be?
It's 5 to 11. I'm thinking.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do not have any other comments or questions. May I have a motion for this project for the special exception permit?
I do have one quick question. Because we don't know what the elevations will be looking like at this time, can we, if we were to approve this with an administrative oversight, is it?
That'll be fine. From the motion that I gave you
Uh-huh.
in regards to site plan, so on page 1, you see the motion for the special exemption permit.
Yes.
And then on page 2, no, actually, on page 2, on the top portion, SPR 2121.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry.
2201.
2201, yes. Either you could allow us to review it administratively, or we could ask that they you deny their preliminary site plan and ask them to come back to the commission for your final review and approval.
To the owner, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Do you have a purchase agreement that's been completed on this? Yes, please.
We do have purchase agreement, and it's I think it's tomorrow, where every time we have to give a deposit because he doesn't want to hold the land.
Right.
So on the elevation, we're looking to get the site plan approval and the special use permit approved, based on we will provide anything to either to the building department. If there's anything that needs to be changed, minor or anything, we can provide that later to the building department or drain commission. So that's we're here to get the site plan approval.
Okay, so you can keep things moving forward.
Keep moving forward. And if there's any minor changes, we can provide that to the department that's holding it.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So Vernon, Donovan, I don't mean to ignore you.
You're fine.
Because we've got two separate things here, the special exception permit and the site plan review, when we make the motion, do we make two motions here?
They should come in the form of two motions.
Yes.
The SEP allows the use, and the site plan would approve how the site is designed and will function.
Okay. All right.
Do one motion, one vote, and then another motion.
Okay,
So-
sounds good. All right, I would like to make a motion to approve SEP 2201 special exception permit for an automotive service commercial use at 1272 Baldwin, parcel identification number 6414172530339, contingent on final site plan review approval.
Thank you. Roll call?
Before I begin, I'd like to introduce also a new appointed member of our Planning Commission, Vernita Duvall. Miss Duvall, I should say. The city clerk was here at the beginning of our meeting and swore in all of the members of the Planning Commission. You will not be, since you were not here for that, you will not be able to vote. We still would have a quorum for whatever decision we make. You just need to make a little bit of arrangement with the clerk to get sworn in. Okay? With that being said, Commissioner Parlov.
Yes to approve the special exception permit.
Commissioner McGinnis.
Yes to approve the special exception permit.
Chair Fegley.
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Northcross.
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Payne.
Yes to approve.
And Commissioner Shepard.
Yes, to approve.
Motion passes. SCP 2201. Okay. And now your vote as relates to the site plan review.
I will make a motion for SPR 2201. I make a motion to approve the preliminary site plan SPR 2201 from Mid-Michigan Energy Holdings, LLC, 1272 Baldwin, parcel identification number 64141725339, and allow the planning manager authorization to grant final site plan approval upon receipt of SCP 2201 special exception permit approval. Do I need to add anything more about the review of the building itself, or is this covered?
No, all of the requirements that did not comply would be addressed as part of our review, including the building. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Support?
Roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Parlov.
Yes to approve the preliminary site plan.
Commissioner Northcross.
Yes to approve.
Chair Fegley.
Yes to approve.
Commissioner McGinnis.
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Payne.
Yes to approve.
And Commissioner Shepard.
Yes, to approve.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Make it nice.
Congratulations.
We appreciate that.
Point of personal privilege, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just want to share with the applicant, to Commissioner Payne's lighthearted comment, that your business will thrive very much by engaging with the neighbors and engaging with the community. So we look forward to you being a very active and positive contribution and addition to the Pontiac community. So thank you for, she was alluding to, if you want to really make an impact, celebrating public spaces and parks, et cetera, just being an active part of the community, it will really resonate with Pontiac residents when you're an active and positive neighbor.
Our goal. We're putting a lot of money there, so we make sure to make it look nice and meet all the requirements and make it safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Well,
Oh,
thank you.
thank you.
You haven't seen the next one.
Okay, next on the agenda is 5.2 ZMA 22-01, which is a zoning map amendment for address 788 East Walton Boulevard. And following that will be the site plan review for this property.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair.
And if I before Dominic gets into the specifics in regards to our review, I just want to say that just for the record for the commissioners, this is a zoning map amendment is what we call this. We are looking at going from an R3 multifamily dwelling zoning district to a C3 corridor commercial district. As once the findings and presentation is given, a public hearing is held, and the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to approve or deny whatever that recommendation is, and then that goes on to City Council for their final vote. Just want to clarify that so everybody understands the process is here as part of our zoning ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and so, Commissioner, our next item is ZMA 2201 zoning map amendment and SPR 21-26 site plan review This is for the preliminary site plan review and zoning map amendment for the expansion of an existing mini storage or self-storage use on land currently zoned R3 multiple family. In the proposed zoning is C3 corridor commercial. So if you do have any questions, this site, I'll kind of go over a little bit of the history, and it may be quite a bit to take in. So if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer any of those we can towards the end. As you can see on this screen, the site is located south of East Walton Boulevard. It is located east of, that'd be Jocelyn Avenue. You can see to the site is outlined by the red line. You can see the existing 9 storage units or storage facilities with the blue roofs, and you can see the vacant land to the immediate west of those structures. This makes up the site as one whole, so that's what we will be referring to. So just some of the history as it relates to this site. The original, or the first 6 storage units were approved sometime in the late 90s, early 2000s. In 1988, City Council did deny the rezoning from the R3 residential to C1. That was the first time that use came. In 1992, it was identified that the unique soil conditions of the home prevented the traditional development of homes or structures. And in 1992, a use variance was granted to permit the golf range, which that vacant land that you saw, that was the driving range that existed. In 2000, another use variance was granted. At this time, the site is still zoned residential. And for the commissioners, new commissioners, use variances are approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they allow uses that are not permitted in that district. So at that time, the golf range was not permitted in the residential district, and the use variance allowed that. And in 2000, there was another use variance granted, again in the residential district, to approve 6 storage units to be built on what they call a floating slab, or the foundation system that was approved at that time. In 2001, another use variance was approved for a daycare center and restaurant. These were located in the Pro Shop, which was the building directly adjacent to Walton Boulevard. In 2002, another use variance was granted, and this speaks to what we are discussing today, which is the expansion of the storage unit use further west into that vacant land. In 2005, the use variance was, I'll take that a step back. In 2002, the use variance that was granted was to allow up to 14 buildings, 14 storage units. That use variance was approved. So you'll see on the screen now there are 9 buildings. 6 were approved in 2000, around that time. Later date, 14 total were approved. They only built 3. So that's why there's a total of 9 buildings. In 2005, at this time, the other units had not been built, and that the owners came back and they requested a use variance to build a climate-controlled building. This would make the 10th building plus 2 more additional storage buildings. In 2005, the site plan and use variance were approved by the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals to permit the climate-controlled building, the additional buildings, and at that time, outdoor storage was also proposed. That outdoor storage was to permit trailers, RVs, and similar vehicles. And those were both approved in 2005. However, they were not built. And at that time, during that approval, while all of the use variances were being granted, if you read and review those, the staff reports, they did recommend that a rezoning take place. It does not say why it did not, more so that it was recommended to be the most appropriate way to address the zoning at this site. So that might have been a lot, so I apologize. So you can see here are some screenshots of the Walton Boulevard heading eastbound to the north. The red arrows indicate the entrance, where the entrance is, and the orange arrow indicates where the where the pro shop is, but you cannot see the rest of the site from the street. You really can only see the entrance as in the westbound image, where you come into it, there's an office, and then you see those buildings. The rest of the site is hidden behind the pro shop. Based on the designation provided by the zoning map and in the ordinance, and mentioned earlier, the site is zoned R3 multiple family, which is predominantly used for multifamily uses, apartments, units or buildings greater than 3. It's typically the definition for multifamily. Townhomes, condominiums, subdivisions are uses that you typically find in the R3 district. However, the series of use variances is what permitted the storage, the pro shop, the restaurant, and the daycare in that R3 district. And you can see that by the red outlined area on your screen. The more appropriate and what the rezoning that we are requesting today is for the C3 corridor commercial district. And that is the predominant district that provides for a mixture of uses appropriate along thoroughfare or collector streets that have moderate to large volumes of traffic. It is expected that most of these establishments in this district travel via automobile, and there is little essential interdependence of activities. Each establishment typically has its own parking and is independent from other sites. When we review zoning map amendments that are outlined in the planning and zoning ordinance, the city also has a master plan or a future land use plan. That document provides a general guideline on how we can make decisions related to new uses, changes to the zoning ordinance, changes to the zoning map. So the designation for that parcel as it relates to the future land use is urban multifamily residential, which is consistent with the existing zoning, the multiple family R3 zoning. However, at the time when this ordinance or the future land use was created, it was most likely not carried over that those series of use variances affected the site in such a way that will make the R3 use and this multifamily use not as relevant to what's taking place on the site. While we do not hold future land use changes to the map, the more appropriate use or the recommended use that we would send when we make the official change to the master plan would be to designate the site as commercial, residential, and green, which allows such uses as the mini storage and self-storage use we're discussing today. Similar to the special exemption permit in the previous case, zoning map amendments have criteria that speak directly to what is required to approve zoning map amendments. The first one is consistency with the master plan. As I indicated, the master plan is less consistent with the use of the site. So it is determined that while the site is not suitable for residential development, the more appropriate and suitable future land use would be commercial, residential, and green. The compatibility of the site's physical and geological characters and other environmental features with these uses are permitted within the zoning district, it does comply. Evidence that the applicant cannot receive a reasonable return on investment through the property with one or more of the uses permitted under the zoning district, it does comply with that criteria. It is compatible with all the potential uses proposed in the zoning district and surrounding areas in terms of land suitability, impacts to the environment, density, traffic, aesthetics, infrastructure, and potential influence on property values. The capacity of the city's utilities and services are sufficient to accommodate the proposed uses. The capability of the street system to safely and efficiently accommodate the expected generated travel and traffic, it does comply with that criteria. The boundaries of the requested rezoning district are reasonable in relationship to the surroundings and construction on the site. The rezoning is appropriate. The requested zoning district is considered to be the more appropriate from the city's perspective than other zoning districts. And the last two, if the request is for a specific use, the rezoning of the land is considered to be more appropriate than amending the list of permitted special land uses in the current zoning district. It does comply with that. And lastly, the requested rezoning will not create an isolated or incompatible zone in the neighborhood, otherwise known as spot zoning. It does comply with that criteria and does not create a spot zone. And that concludes the presentation for the ZMA zoning map amendment.
Thank you. So with all the variances at this site has pretty much been functioning as a commercial zoning.
That would be correct.
Okay. Can you present what the future plan for the site plan will be now?
Yes.
And as Donovan is teeing up that, I just want to say that it's been interesting because there's been other developments in the city that are being proposed, and there was a consistency within the planning division to, instead of looking at rezonings and making it more consistent with the future plan at the time, they used a lot of using the ZBA and using use variances, what we're trying to do here is basically clean up maybe some issues that shouldn't have been done the way they were a number of years ago, to clean up our ordinances and cleaning up our maps and what that represents is true commercial development that's being proposed here. And when you look at obviously Walton Boulevard as a corridor in regards to what is going on there, yeah, down in this section on the east side of Walton is a little bit much more multiple family in nature, but that commercial influence is creeping to the east. That's similar to what's going on in the west, and particularly at major intersections of Baldwin and Joslin and so forth. So it's again just trying to clean up some issues that were created back in the past and try to improve the situation in regards to for future development, and also in regards to obviously allowing the what we reference, not just self-storage, but it's called mini warehousing, was how we reference this type of use, but also allowing C3, if and when, down the road, if there is other type of commercial development that would come into that area also. So there's that opportunity too, and we've cleaned up that past mistake, so to speak. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do.
So moving forward, regarding the same site, 788 East Walton, this will be for the preliminary site plan review for the expansion of mini storage into that area that is zoned R3. So just some more context, as I mentioned in the previous, that a historical site plan was approved in 2005, and this is just a reference of that. You can see to the right that these would be the 9 buildings that were approved 6 of these exist today. 1, 2, and 3 were not built. There was a 14th building, which was proposed to be here, another storage structure. This area in the middle, the diagonal lines indicate the RV and trailer parking that was approved. And then this black rectangle indicates the cold storage building that was also approved in 2005 via use variances and site plan reviews. To the left, you can see the elevations that were proposed for those storage structures. So as with the series of use variances and site plans through the years, some of those conditions and variances carried out to the next plan and the plan after, just to ensure that what was approved continues to be approved. So I'll just briefly highlight some of those variances and conditioned. The use expansion of 14 buildings, which was approved in 2002, in addition to those 6 that were approved in 2000. The zoning ordinance requires a 512 roof pitch. Variances were approved to allow a 1-to-1 or a flat roof or 1-to-2, which was permitted to match the existing buildings. The proposed hours for the climate controlled and outdoor structure were the same as the existing facility, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Any outdoor storage spaces shall be striped as indicated on the approved plan. That speaks to the outdoor storage and trailer storage that was approved. Compliance with the 2002 case 16 approval by the City Planning Commission. Again, further compliance with Site Plan 0552, which was approved by the City Planning Commission. In 2002, revised drawings indicated new fencing with elevations, and any fencing greater than 8 feet shall require a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. No barbed wire or support arms shall be installed, and that is a criteria that does reflect in our current zoning ordinance. In 2002, the lighting of the building's exterior shall be installed so that the surface of the source light shall not be visible from any bedroom window and shall be arranged as far as practical to reflect light away from any residential use. Again, that is also reflected in our current zoning ordinance and is among the criteria we review in this case and in all site plan reviews. On the screen, you can see the proposed site plan as they've submitted. You can see the storage buildings that were historically approved and constructed, and then you can see the additional storage buildings that they are proposing in this site plan. The applicants have provided elevations, and I will allow them to speak to the materials and how they chose those. They selected those materials as well. And then we did provide conditions for the final site plan approval. One would be compliance with the historical site plan that was approved in 2002, PF 0216. Continued compliance with site plan 0552. Compliance with the fence height requirements, height over 8 feet, and they will have to require variances. Continued compliance with the lighting and exterior and foot candles as it relates to the lighting plan. Civil and engineering plan review by the city engineer and Department of Public Works must be approved prior to final site plan approval. Final site plan approval from the Waterford Fire Department. Final site plan approval pending resubmission of revised site plans that further comply with any comments identified in the site plan review technical report. And that concludes the site plan review for 788 East Walton.
Thank you. Is the applicant here this evening? Hi. Please approach the podium, name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Scott Peruski with PEA Group, 1137 Ashwood Lane, Howell, Michigan. I am the civil engineer. The owner and the architect are also here as well for questions that come up.
Thank you. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to the presentation of Donovan?
I did want to say thanks to Donovan for the deep dive in the history. Some of it was old information. It's hard to hard to see in one spot. So thank you for that. The request for the rezoning did come as a little bit of a surprise to the property owner, but after going through the whole list, we do understand why and the benefit that it offers, and the property owner was willing to make the change. So we hope that's well received.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For the zoning map amendment, it is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the floor to anyone who would like to make a public comment regarding the project. Doesn't look like there's any public comment, so would you like to make a public comment regarding the project? No? Okay, I'm going to close public comment, go to my fellow commissioners. Welcome, Anita. Did you have any comments or questions that you would like to ask the petitioner? Thank you. Commissioner McGinnis, would you like any comments?
Mr. Smith, if you could take us to an aerial view of the zoning map, if you're able to navigate. I want to get a better understanding of basically the southern border of this parcel. Aerial views seem to show there was a water feature of sorts. Wanted to learn a little bit more about that and where in relation, so there, yep, that helps. It's your call, because I'm going to be asking questions about both. Right, so at the southern boundary, it seems to be essentially undeveloped, if you will, natural land. I thought I saw on a certain schematic that at the southern end of this aerial view that we see, there's sort of substantial electrical towers and electrical apparatus. But I was trying to get a sense on if there was a former rail bed that is close to this site and the current ownership of that. Because without speaking too speculatively, the long-term desire is that those former rail beds can become green spaces through linear parks or trails. Sure. And it's very close to JC Park, which is a substantial park. And so I'd just be curious, the decisions that we make now might impact what is the residential or recreational view or vantage point from the southern end of the parcel. So I know it's a bit of a not very traditional question, but it's a unique opportunity to enhance the natural aesthetics for not current use, if you will. But so I won't handcuff this project to that. I just wanted to broach that conversation for the planner to share with this commission. Is that far too speculative for us to even get in the weeds with that? And does this proposed site plan impact dramatically sort of the line of sight from that abandoned rail line?
You want to take a stab at it, Vern, or you want me to?
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm trying to, I believe, as we know, that this is part of, obviously, we're talking about the North Spur.
Yeah.
And that continues on. We would have to take a look in regards to property ownership if that is part of what the city did acquire. And I would say that from a standpoint in regards from a site perspective, I mean, it is, they are maintaining what they propose on their site as part of development. We do know we have certain water features that will not be impacted with whatsoever. That would come into obviously working with the Water Resource Commission. They would have to make sure that they submit the appropriate soil erosion and sedimentation permits for the work that they're going to do on that site. Understanding that the site probably will not be that much impacted. What they'll continue to do, because of the environmental issues that are plaguing this site, we'll have to see how that falls into place in regards to lessening the impact in regards to this area also.
There's nothing further that Mr. Smith wanted to chime in on that question. You opened up my next question in terms of ongoing environmental concerns with this site, and the language in part of our materials references poor soil conditions, which led to it being a golf driving range. Sort of that was one of the viable uses. What's the deal with the soil and the environmental conditions on this site?
We speculate it's not really related to the driving range. It's related to a previous use that was there. We could not find any further details in regards to it, and maybe the applicant or the owner has an idea also that could shed some light on that question.
And if I may, I was just informed that it was historically a former dump. The documents that were approved and reviewed in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was an engineer or some consultant that did provide that statement that there were soil conditions. But since then, there has not been any additional documents or findings related to what those specific conditions are.
The storage facilities that are planned, will they be essentially a carryover of the existing footprint, meaning will it have the same branding, the same ownership, or?
Yes, it'll be the same units and slab on grade, and again to minimize earthwork. To our recollection, the driving range is probably the oldest history that we're aware of. We believe the site was probably mass graded to accommodate the driving range, and that's all we're aware of at this time.
And so at the south end of the parcel, could you help me understand what sort of comes after there's pavement or cement, or the sort of the end of where
Sure.
it'll be for vehicular traffic? What facing south would then exist?
Okay. So as we build south, we will carry that theme from east to west with the paving sloping south. South of the units on the west, we have asphalt there for site circulation, and there's a fence, and there's gates for snow removal where snow gets pushed down. And at the very bottom of the screen is an embankment, a drop off there, a natural topographic drop off to that body of water. So everything, all the construction is going to be held to that top of the bank and north. So no disturbance to that body of water or that existing embankment is proposed.
And to that natural topographical drop-off that we're discussing, what's the current sort of vegetation situation? Is it providing any screen? What will folks on that footprint be looking at? And then just sort of if somebody was droning in and looking up, is there going to be any green screen?
It's heavily wooded in its current state. No proposed changes to that.
Thank you. I believe that's all the questions I have right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Northcross, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, I'd like to see what parcel, it looks like we have two parcels that we're combining into one to rezone, if I'm correct.
Historically, there were two parcels. As of today, it is one parcel. So the zoning map that was approved in 2012, at that time, there were two parcels. Sometime between 2012 and today, it was combined into one parcel.
Now, is there there was a daycare center and a restaurant immediately west of the current entrance?
Correct. That is the former pro shop when the driving range was placed. I cannot remember the name of the daycare, but a new occupant took over that space, I believe, in Caterpillar. I believe they were approved here. I think they came to them here.
Yeah.
And then Nana's Kitchen is also a new restaurant, and they moved into that pro shop within the past year and a half, I think maybe right before COVID.
So the rezoning will include those two buildings?
The rezoning, yes.
Okay. And are those two buildings currently owned by the owner of the Okay, so you own all of that? Okay, good. That is my questions, and that area does have a fairly high density of people and residents, apartments, so I can understand why there's a need for additional storage. Excellent.
It is an interesting mix of density, low to medium, where you do have the multifamily and the subdivisions to the south of Walton, and then you have the larger, what we call R1A and R1B zone residential district to the north, which are similar to the residential districts throughout the city. However, those lots are just a little bit larger across the board. So it does provide, like I said, a mix of multifamily and residential.
That is my question. Thank you.
Mr. Shepherd, do you have any comments or questions?
Just that it seems to be the best use for the property. I don't see any problem with it. I mean, I think if you didn't have the buildings up front, it could be residential, but not anymore. So I like it.
Thank you. Commissioner Farlow, do you have any comments or questions?
I do. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for coming in. The zoning between Donovan and Vern, does the zoning include the outdoor parking of RVs and vehicles?
It would not.
Okay.
This
so
would
that
be strictly for the expansion of the mini storage use.
Okay. But it looks based on the renderings that you weren't planning on doing outdoor parking of vehicles.
That's correct.
Okay. And it's just a continuation of everything that's there. It's just the same, nothing different from the public's viewpoint.
Brad, you maybe want to talk about future.
Brad Buchera. My address is 115 Eagle Ridge Drive, Ontario. I did come down from Canada to be here today. I am a lawyer as well, only licensed to practice in Ontario. So we are adding the climate control, which is new to the facility. Right now we only have drive up, and like Canada, we have very cold winters here in Michigan, so people can appreciate bringing their belongings into a climate controlled area. So we want to offer that to the citizens of Pontiac. At the same time, our occupancy rate right now is 95%, so the city is calling for more storage. So that's why we'd like to get these buildings up as soon as possible.
Okay, so it'll be for storage of items rather than vehicles for your climate control.
Climate control will be most definitely household items.
Okay.
We don't allow for any businesses to be conducted. Any food is not allowed in any of the units. It's usually just furniture and extra stuff that you don't keep at home.
Okay. And then the hours of operation?
The hours of our operation are around 9 to 5. However, you have gated access, which starts from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Oh, okay. So they can't come 24 hours if they wanted to?
No, I mean, most of our facilities, it depends on the environment and the demographics of that area. So we found for Pontiac, it's best to limit it to a certain amount. You don't want traffic coming to the property after hours. It leads to crime and break-ins.
Sure. And then as far as lighting for the, well, it looks from the aerial that there's not a lot behind it, but the lighting will be more of a down
shield. We will follow suit of what we currently have on our existing buildings, which are lights on the actual building itself.
Okay.
And keep in mind, like we were talking about those conditions of site plans that were approved back in 2005, those type of conditions and those variances that they received will also have to be made. We will make sure that those are adhered to as part of this site plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. That's all that I have. I didn't even know that amount of land was back there until I drove back there to look today. So good for you that you can put that to use. So
I'm trying my best.
Dana, thank you for. Do you own all of it now, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did you own it from before when it was all this was going
on?
No,
we bought it as storage facilities once the variances were all done.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Payne, do you have any comments, questions?
Not really. I just wanted to say thank you for coming to the city of Pontiac. Welcome. And I know the area very well. Now, when you're building more, will you be adding more cameras in that area, or how is that?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have. Well kept.
Yep.
Looks good.
Yes.
Although the water in the back is just too bad you can't see it.
Yes, even when you go right up to the fence, you can't see it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I do not have any questions for the applicant. May I have a motion?
Sure, I will make the first motion. Per the rezoning criteria found in section 6.804 of the zoning ordinance, planning division's technical review and findings, I make a motion to recommend approval of ZMA 2201. The recommendation will be presented to City Council for approval that the request of Storage 1 to rezone parcel number 641416226015 from R3 multiple family dwelling to C3 corridor commercial zoning district.
Support?
Roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Parlov,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Northcross,
Yes, to approve.
Commissioner Payne,
Abstain.
Commissioner Shepard,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner McGinnis,
Yes to approve.
and Chair Fegley.
Yes to approve.
Motion passes.
May I have a motion for site plan review?
I would like to make a motion to approve the preliminary site plan review SPR 2121 from Storage 1, 788 East Walton Boulevard, parcel identification number 641416226015, and allow the planning manager authorization to grant final site plan approval.
Support?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Parlov,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Northcross,
Yes, to approve.
Chair Fegley,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner McGinnis,
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Payne,
Abstain.
and Commissioner Shepard.
Yes to approve.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. All right, next on the agenda under new business is SPR 21-18 site plan review for 640 West Huron.
Thank you, Chair Fagley. The next case, as mentioned, is SPR 2118. This is a site plan review for the address 640 West Huron, currently zoned R1 single one family dwelling district. This is for the Webster Community Center. This is a site plan review to redevelop the property into a multi-purpose community center on land currently zoned R1 one family dwelling district. Just a brief summary. The subject site is a single parcel, approximately 4.82 acres. The property is on the north side of West Huron, bordered by Newberry Street, Monroe Street, and Murphy Avenue. The subject property is currently zoned R1 single family. The primary function of the R1 single family is typically suitable for single family homes. However, the zoning ordinance does permit community centers by right in this district, and most people are aware that this was the former Webster Elementary School that is up for redevelopment. Just for reference, you can see the site. It is quite large, customary of former school sites, located north of East Walton Boulevard, between Newberry, Monroe, and the last street escapes me at the moment. Heading eastbound on the top of the screen, you can see the image. You can see the subject site to the right or north. And then westbound, you can also see the site. It would be visible east and west traveling lanes. As mentioned, the site is zoned R1, one family dwelling, typical of school sites, former school sites, and conducive to single family homes or other smaller one family dwellings. So before I show the site plan and some of the other supporting documents, Similar to our other site plan reviews, there are standards as they relate to 6.205, standards for site plan approval. Briefly, circulation, we must ensure there's a proper relationship between the existing streets and highways within the vicinity and proposed acceleration or deacceleration lanes, service drive, entrances, and exits. The buildings and proposed structures on the lot upon the premises are situated as to minimize adverse effects upon owners and occupants of the adjacent properties. This is an existing structure and is not proposing any new structures. Natural features of the landscape shall be retained as possible where they furnish a barrier screen or buffer between project and adjoining properties. This site is surrounded by right-of-way or roadway, and the existing green space is being retained. And the last criteria is site layout and screening, where any adverse effects of the proposed development and activities emanating therefrom that affect adjoining residents or owners shall be minimized by appropriate screening. It does maintain necessary screening, fencing where necessary between the project site, right-of-way, and the proposed residential uses. So on your screen, you see two sets of images. The primary or the larger image to the bottom shows the site as it is. The building you can see the outline of, and the expanded parking area, which is the heavily shaded gray area. To the top of the screen, you will see two additional off-site parking lots, which are permitted by the zoning ordinance. Adjacent to residential, there is some screening, landscaping requirements. The site plan does meet those requirements. And the parking lot directly to above the heavily graded area, that address is 36 Murphy Avenue. That is a existing structure, a former multifamily building. That building is owned by Oakland County, and the developer or the lead on this project has gone into work with Oakland County. They are agreed to sell that property to them and allow the demolition of that structure to support the required parking for this redevelopment, which is pretty exciting. We've seen a lot of interest in people wanting to do things with that building, but parking has always been a challenge. So it's good to see at least a use put to that site. They have provided a landscaping plan that does meet all the requirements, as the site is currently landscaped, and there are some slight improvements that they are recommending to include in their new landscaping plan. The floor plan was provided, and you can see where a lot of those former classrooms are being converted into offices and office space, multi-purpose space. The yellow area in the middle shows where the former gym is, and I believe that is also being repurposed and remodeled for use. So there are a few staff findings related to this project. In initial reviews, as there was a deficit in parking, through working with Oakland County and acquiring those additional lots, they were able to not only meet the parking requirement, but exceed the parking requirement. As mentioned, the off-site parking does require the demolition of 34 Murphy. Off-site parking lots will maintain the required landscaping and screening wall. And then off-site parking does include 4 residential parcels. On the image, it looked like 2, but it's 4, and they will be combined into 1 and 1. With our site plans, we have provided conditions for final site plan approval. Those are as follows: compliance with section 4.305, parking layout and design standards, A through G. Pole height and shielding of freestanding fixtures, these will be light poles of such, must comply with section 4.503. Ground and building mounted signs must also comply with the zoning ordinance section 5.102. A demolition permit and all associated requirements must be met with the Department of Building and Safety. Final site plan approval would be pending approval from the Department of Building and Safety. Final site plan approval pending final engineering approval from the Department of Public Works. Final site plan approval pending pending fire site plan approval with the Waterford Fire Department. And that concludes the presentation for this project, SPR 2118.
Thank you. This is not a public hearing, so we will delve right into questions.
If we could ask Micah Six and his team if there's further details they would like to explain as part of the project before we, and maybe we'll probably answer maybe some of the questions of the commissioners.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good to see everyone. Congratulations on your recent swearing in. Good to be here at your kickoff meeting. My name is Coleman Yoakum. I'm the executive director at Micah 6 Community. We own this building. We have been in the long process of getting this turned into a community center. Our most recent accomplishment, we just got this building listed on the National Historic Registry. So we had our meeting in front of the State Historic Preservation Office. Thank you for the letter of support from Mr. McGinnis and council and everyone here. Thank you all for your support. So this building is 26 classrooms. It's about 53,000 square feet. We have all of that committed to organizations that are going to be moving in once this building is completely renovated. That includes 6 Head Start classrooms, a walk-in clinic that Honor Community Health is putting in, an indoor bus stop, consolidating a number of uncovered, muddy bus stops on the side of the road and bringing those inside to be a transportation terminal. We are keeping the gym as a gym. It was one of the requirements from the State Historic Preservation Office. Sprout, our vegetable store, is moving in to expand to become a small grocery. Accent Pontiac, Kaleo Kids, PAL, the Art Experience, a number of other great organizations moving in to provide programming in this building for people in our neighborhood. So, yes, I didn't know if it was included in your packet or not, but thank you, Donovan, for mentioning it. The arrangement we have with Oakland County, they're demolishing that large vacant building that's been sitting on Murphy empty for 10 years. They're knocking it down and then selling us the land to turn into parking for this building. So we're pretty excited to, yes, have a blighted building removed, but also a purpose for that lot. So that's pretty exciting. I'm going to step out of the way and let you talk to Rob Clark from CBI Design Professionals. He is our architect on this project.
For the record, Robert Clark, CBI Design Professionals, 838 West Long Lake Road, Bloomfield Hills. This has been a project that Coleman has done a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over, and I know a lot of you on the Planning Commission are pretty aware of this project. We were here in August to introduce it, and have had a lot of good community interaction with this project ever since. And Coleman has done a tremendous job of working with the community and identifying what the need was as represented by, he has got a waiting list of people that would like to get into this facility. So Donovan, I do need to thank you though for making sure that we were on tonight and getting that all taken care of for us. So I appreciate that a lot. The only other note I had, Coleman covered for me, and that is Oakland County is anticipating taking that building down on their dime, hopefully, before selling that facility to Micah 6. So easier for me to answer questions than it is for me to anticipate them. So I'll probably go from there.
Thank you. Commissioner Duval, do you have any questions? Commissioner McGinnis, do you have any questions?
Good evening. The reference of 4 residential parcels, that's for the Murphy adjacent work that will be done. So is that just a matter of, it is essentially that one large apartment complex, but it just happens to sit on multiple parcels?
That is correct. The 34 Murphy sits on 2 parcels, and the 2 parcels for the other lot are currently just 2 independent vacant parcels that they're going to be combined into one to support that parking lot.
Very good. I thought that in the presentation there might have been a reference to that the benefit of this parking lot extends beyond just the the future Webster Community Center employees, staff, visitors, community members. Did I interpret that correctly? Is there other adjacent uses that will be able to benefit from that on Murphy Avenue?
As a part of this site plan, that would not be the case unless the owners allow that. It is their parking lot. It's private to them. And if they were to allow that, that would be up to their choice. It is not a public parking lot.
Understood. So in addition to the parking footprint, the most noticeable change for residents and passersby seems to be the drop-off route at the front along Huron. That intention is for that interior bus stop benefit. That is where for buses only or drop-off. How should residents and visitors to Pontiac anticipate that differentiation along Huron?
That's a great question, one that has had a lot of conversation. We are currently in conversation with MDOT right at the moment. M59 is their road, and so they have a lot of jurisdiction over that particular element of it. Their initial responses for that has been that we will use that as the small buses. That the big ones can't handle that loop, so it would be the small drop-off senior citizen type buses, those kind of sizes. They are also going to require us to have a right turn in, right turn out only solution there, and we've modified the crosswalk situation to mid-block at their request in terms of handling the circulation from a pedestrian as well as vehicular standpoint there. We are in for an MDOT permit right at the moment on that, and so it's under engineering review with them.
Fun historical fact, when this was first built as a school over 100 years ago, there was still a streetcar line on Huron, and so there was a Detroit United Railway, or DUR, streetcar stop right in front of the Webster School. So that which is old becomes new again. Thank you very much for a very thorough site plan. When you look at all the review categories, every single one is in compliance. I thought that was especially noteworthy, or not applicable to this particular site, but all in compliance. It's very commendable. Thank you very much for the work that went into this. No further questions at this time.
Commissioner Cross, any comments, questions?
Just a comment of thank you for your tenacity. Thank you for your vision. Schools are tough things to redevelop, and it really takes some foresight and, again, vision to see what to do with a school building, because they're built initially for schools. And I just applaud you that you've been able to come in and to work with this school, work with the community. I'm familiar with a number of people who live about the MICA 6 activity, and they speak highly of that, the whole development, your greenhouse, the other things that have been done. In fact, I think a few of them even got chickens going as a result of discussing things with you. So thank you, bravo, good work.
Thank you. Mr. Shepard, do you have any comments or questions?
It's a heck of a vision. I've walked it with you before, so I shook my head. I mean, I'm impressed by what you've put together, and that you've actually got tenants in this, and it's a gorgeous building. Yeah. So the potential's huge, and I love it. I don't have any concerns, but my only question will be what you're going to do to the exterior. As far as you have to keep it historic, but what are you doing to make that look good?
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of analysis that goes into that. We have hired a historical architectural group that's quite well renowned in the state to review that, get us on the historic register, and make sure that we're not slipping up along the way, especially on the exterior of that. It is intended to be restored to its original. Rephrase that a little bit. We can't recreate history, so the things that are not there now are not necessarily going to try to be recreated from something that we don't have. But what is there now that's in disrepair will be repaired taken care of, put back together the way it was originally done in terms of profiles and shapes and colors and all of those kind of things.
Masonry will be cleaned and.
Yep. We've got a lot of cleaning to do there.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Seen the inside. What about the roof? Is that going to be replaced, or is that?
The roof will be taken off. We will replace that roof with an insulated roof assembly. There is not an insulation in that roof deck right at the moment, as would be common for that generation. And so there'll be an insulation added to the top of the roof sheeting and a new membrane added above that so that we can get a little bit of energy performance out of it.
Right. And HVAC's going to be on the roof, or is it?
HVAC is going to be on the roof. The National Park Service requires that not be able to be seen from across the street. And so that's all been checked, and we've been diligent about making sure that we can keep that out of sight.
Great. Congrats. That's awesome.
Commissioner Perla, do you have any comments, questions?
I do. My school, I went to the school first, second, and third grade. Just when you said you were talking about HVAC, thank you for your question. Is there any way that you can do something with thermal, not necessarily solar, but can you do like a heat pump or anything like that? Can you do anything?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to do as much as we can to look at sustainability issues. Of course, one of the primary things that we look at when we look at renovating an existing structure or an older structure, just the mere fact of renovating it is an enormous sustainability benefit, as opposed to the alternative, which is taking it down and putting it in a landfill. And so you start off right away with a tremendous amount of sustainability issues to your side on that. We are looking at putting in solar arrays on the roof, again, beyond the sight line so that you can't see that they are there, and tapping that into our electrical grid system. The geothermal potential on the property, we probably have some property to do that with, but the nature of the building and the HVAC system that we're doing, we believe we get a lot more out of the solar than we will out of the geothermal for that, based on return on investment. The geothermal is an extremely expensive system to put in, especially for that type of facility.
Okay. And are you maintaining the transoms that were there? Are they still there?
Yes. We are.
Great.
Mhm.
Great. So I am curious, there's these rectangular shapes on your plan. What does that represent when you get on? There's no page number.
I'm going to need to go to which plan you were looking at. So.
Oh, I see. First floor occupancy Boris plan? Is that what it says? B-O.
Is that the colored one? Are you looking at?
I don't have everything black and white.
We got, I think, probably the colored version.
There's all these little rectangulars. What used to be classrooms?
Yes, that's probably classrooms, if that's what. Yeah.
But they look like.
Is that the one up on the screen right now?
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's the roof deck. Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. It was hard to tell. It looked like they were going to go into the classrooms.
And if I may, that second floor is not a whole floor; it's a portion of a floor. That is.
Yes.
When I was there, when you went to that school, you would stay in the same classroom for the 3 years, and then you would switch around the school. So I was in room 21, which was on the north side, which overlooked that parking area. And Mrs. Stoltenberg was my teacher, and she went to Alaska, and she told us about how the sun stayed up all night. When we were little kids, we were completely, what? And then she taught us to square dance, and I had to be her partner because we were the same height in third grade. She was like probably this big. So this is so wonderful. Thank you, Coleman, for doing this to this school. It was a heartbreak to drive by there over and over again and see things not kept up as they should have been. So for the windows, are the windows going to have glass in them again?
So the windows will go back to full glass, just like they would have originally been.
Okay.
The material will be slightly different, but the character will be the same.
Okay.
We'll do an aluminum exterior cladding that would have matched the historical proportions and dimension and so on, but hopefully last a little longer.
Okay. And then what happened to the overpass, the crosswalk? What happened? It just disappeared one night. I drove by there one day. It was gone.
So a couple of years ago, someone noticed that it had been struck by a car, and a number of the supports had been taken out from under. It had to have been a tank, because I don't know how this car drove away after hitting it and taking out the supports, and it was like that for a week before anyone noticed.
Wow.
So it did come down, but one of my favorite things is to walk through this building with people who went to school here. So we're going to have to do that someday. But Gwen Markham, Oakland County Commissioner from Novi, brought a group of her friends, because she went to that school, and brought a group of her friends with her. And they kept referring to the bridge as the Sally Johnson Memorial Bridge. But someone on the tour was named Sally Johnson, and so I said, was this named after you? What's the joke? And she goes, it was built after I was hit by a car.
Oh, no kidding.
Trying to walk to school. She says, clearly I survived. It was my neighbor who threw me in the car and then went and got my mom, and we all went to St. Joe's together. But so I met the person who was the impetus for building the bridge.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, it was the scariest thing when you were a little kid to walk over the traffic going under you, because it was all, like a cage. It was like, Oh.
Yes, and so the conversations with MDOT about putting in a crosswalk there that is wide, that is visible, that actually stops traffic. We say, they're like, well, it's going to be a lot of money, and you're going to have to pay a lot for that. And I was like, well, if you would have just left the one we had.
Yeah.
But I don't get a say in these things.
So MDOT's going to do something with signaling so that you can cross in front of the school again?
Yeah, so there's a number of things going on simultaneously. Vern and the building department are doing an assessment of all of Huron, and we're doing our own traffic counts and things like that, and then anticipating, including repeat people, bodies through the doors. We're anticipating about 100,000 people through that door every year. And some of those are Head Start kids that are there every day for a couple of hours. But so we're anticipating a lot of traffic coming to this building. And so we're going to need some sort of very serious, well-marked crossing there. Not necessarily like what's on Telegraph, where people are still doing Frogger to get to the islands, to get to the other side of the island. So, so we're in those conversations right now and having those conversations.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Payne, do you have any questions?
I am so excited about this project on the first go round. And one of the questions that I had in regards to it, though, is that have you met with the schools districts within the system here and to introduce this?
I have not.
Please do.
Okay.
Because this is just awesome. It is so what our children need. And one of the other things is that as far as the engagement, have you had any thoughts of how are you going to engage the community to get them in, and will this be residents only, or will you be accepting individuals from other areas of the...
Sure. So the neighborhood has been in this process from the beginning. So we, when we were considering purchasing the building, it was talking to the community, asking, a lot of questions. We have surveyed the neighborhood a couple of different times. We gave out about 300 surveys for people in the neighborhood saying, anywhere from how much do we care about this building? If we knocked it down and rebuilt something else, would that be acceptable? Do you want it? Do you not want it? What sort of services would you like to have accessible there? What sort of things do you wish were in this neighborhood but you can't get to? What do we need to make sure is walkable? And so we surveyed 300 people. We actually tossed out any survey we got from anybody who lived further than a mile from the building to make sure that it was hyper-local. And so we had about 224 residents that filled that survey out and answered those questions who live within a mile of that building. And then it was with their recommendations, and sort of we figured out what they wanted in that building, and that's how we determined which organizations we approached and asked if they wanted to be tenants. And so there's nothing coming into that building that didn't score really high in terms of a neighborhood wants to be in that building. And so our neighbors are also our volunteers in our garden, which is on the playground there at Webster. They are, the ones who send their kids to our kids programs. They're the ones who are shopping at Sprout. And so we are consistently getting feedback from our neighbors all the time. Mostly the major feedback right now is that it's taking too long, and I don't disagree. It's a long process. Who knew, right? And so that is the feedback we're getting right now. But the neighborhood's excited about it and really excited about it. In terms of who can and can't use it, that sort of thing, there will be a gym in there that's open for basketball when there's not programming going on in there, and we want anyone to use it. We want it to be used. One of the things that's in this building is a commercial kitchen that we want to rent out to food entrepreneurs to use for making their products and things like that. I don't think that we're going to have a pretty, a hard line on who can and can't use that. I think we'll be excited to help anyone who wants to get a small food business up and going. And then the tenants who are in that building will have their different requirements. Honor Community Health will be in that building. They'll help everyone. Head Start will be in that building. It's income restricted, but I don't think it's geographically going to be restricted at all. So I imagine that this building will serve definitely the west side of town, definitely a broader group of children who are coming for after-school programs in this building, and probably a number of people from East Waterford, West Bloomfield, that area, who are all close to Telegraph and 59.
Great. Awesome. Totally. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so well needed in that community.
Thank you so much for your commitment to this community and to this project. Without any further ado, may I have a motion?
I would love to make this motion, please.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the preliminary site plan, SPR 2118, from Micah 6 Community, 640 West Huron, parcel identification number 6414 30453-001, and allow the planning manager authorization to grant final site plan approval.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Parlov.
Yes. In support.
Commissioner Northcross.
Yes to approve.
Chair Figley.
Yes to approve.
Commissioner McGinnis.
Yes to approve.
Commissioner Payne.
Yes to approve.
And Commissioner Shepard.
Yes to approve.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Hooray.
Hooray.
Good evening.
And also, if I could give the commissioners and also Mr. Coleman Yoakum an update also. We are working with MSU students in their spring practicum, and they are studying West Huron between Woodward and Telegraph. I just reviewed their first draft over the weekend and talked to them today. They will have their, I'm looking forward to have them as part of a presentation to you, the commissioners, on the May meeting. They have to get it done before a certain date in May because they have to have their project in. They've done some great finds in regards to data and so forth that I will be definitely offering to you and everybody else on West Huron. I do know that Wayne, as I heard from our city engineer Abdul Siddiqui, that MDOT is actually studying West Huron further in regards to the crosswalk, which obviously you've been dealing with in those mid-block connectors. And I'm hearing it from the students. There's 8 of them that are seniors or grad students that are part of that team. So I'll be looking forward to sharing that information with you. And also, yeah, this is my second practicum actually with them. It's fun. It's great. It's a great time, and I'm getting some great data, and I'm not. All I have to pay was a small stipend in Michigan State, so it's even better. It is. Yes. Yeah. So, anyways, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last on the agenda is 6.4 SPR 22-03 site plan review for 815-821 Gulf Drive.
Yes, thank you,
Yeah,
Chair.
if I can, Donovan, I just want to give a little bit of background to the commissioners. This project came before you back in September of last year. The Planning Commission approved it. What it was approved for was 2 3-story garden-style apartments on the same property, on this property. The applicant, with making some revisions and taking a look in regards to the market, he decided to add a third building to the site, except for it's not being 3 stories, it's only going to be 2 stories. A little bit closer to Gulf Drive, but still maintaining that natural setback, still dealing with the transmission lines that go across the property, and did a great job. And if you remember correctly, during our conversation with them, there was quite a bit of debate in regards to materials that were being proposed on it, and they took that to heart, and I think we walked away with a 60-40 split between kind of a fiber cement panel versus siding. They have come back with all 3 buildings will be 100% fiber cement panels, and that you'll be able to see that on some of the elevations and so forth. That being a combination of hardy board and Nietzsche high, both being fiber cement panels. Okay? So I just want to give you a heads up in regards to, so if this project looks familiar, it is. So, with a slight modification.
Mm-hmm.
With that, go ahead, Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Vern. All right, our last case today is SPR 2203 site plan review for the subject parcel 815 Gulf Drive, also known as 821 Gulf Drive, currently zoned R3 multiple family dwelling district. As Vern mentioned, this is a site plan review to construct an additional or the third multiple family dwelling structure on the site, zoned R3. As mentioned, phase 1 was previously approved. This is phase 2 or 1.1 as could be. So just a brief summary of the site. As mentioned, phase 1 was approved for 2 freestanding multi-family structures. The current site plan details phase 2 or the addition of one more multi-family structure. The parcel is zoned R3, multiple family dwelling. These structures and uses are permitted by right. The planning department, the planning division has a preliminary site plan or approval from the planning commission September 8, 2021, and that was for 2 structures, both 48 units, each, or not each, I'm sorry, it's half and half, I believe. Yep. So point of reference, if you are familiar with the PIREC building and where that was, this is located north of that, south of Gulf Drive. Heading westbound, the properties would be located on your left, and heading eastbound would be on your right. Currently, it is predominantly vacant. Across that internal drive was the former dormitories. That has been redeveloped and is currently thriving and doing well. And then if you go further down that drive, there are some additional living residential structures that were also approved and are also doing well. As it relates to the zoning of the property, it was rezoned a couple years back to the current R3 district, and that district does support multifamily dwellings. Bloomfield Park, or the village of Bloomfield, that development is located to the south of it. The parcel immediately, the purple parcel immediately to the east is the American House Senior Living Facility, which was approved. And then the parcels immediately to the left and right are zoned R1 single family. Again, on your screen is the site plan and landscaping plan. A more detailed and probably a bit more readable version is included in your packets. And you can see those 3 structures. This would be the 3-story. The middle structure is also a 3-story. And then the furthest to the left or closest to Gulf Drive, you can see the proposed 2-story structure. just south of the retaining pond or retention pond. As mentioned, the first or phase 1 did approve 2 buildings that were 3 stories tall. This third building is a 2-story structure. Other than the height change, they are identical in terms of size, elevations, and materials. Floor plans were provided. More detailed floor plans for the 2-story and the 3-story structure are also included. Just to note, they are the same. As mentioned, they're just one's 2-story and one is 3-story. A larger detail in your packet and on the screen show you the footprint of the 1-bedroom units at 660 square feet and the 2-bedroom units at 1,025 square feet. The site context provided shows the titled Westwood Apartments Phase 2. You can see the Phase 1 structures that detail 24 units each. The other Phase 1 structure, the PACE structure, you can see in the upper right, that was approved and is completed. And then just above that label, you see the 819, which is the reused and repurposed former dormitories. And that project was also approved here and completed within the past year or so. On your screen, in your packet, and on the board in front of you are just more renderings and images of what the site is proposed to look like in the developments when they are completed. And similar to our other site plans for review, there are 4 standards for approval. The first being circulation. We must ensure there's proper relationship between the existing streets and highways within the vicinity and proposed acceleration and de-acceleration lanes, service drives, exit and entrance driveways. The buildings and structures proposed to be located upon the premises are situated as to minimize adverse effects upon the owners and occupants of adjacent properties. Natural features of landscape shall be retained as possible where they furnish a barrier, screen, or buffer between the project and adjoining properties. And lastly, site layout and screening must not have any adverse effects on the proposed development and activities emanating therefrom that affect adjoining residents or owners, and that shall be minimized by appropriate screening, fencing, landscaping, setbacks, location of building structures, and entryways. As per our technical review, we've identified, or we have some staff findings, and the developer may be able to share with you the parking criteria and how they came about the numbers they did. Our ordinance does require a 1-to-1 space per bedroom. Based on that calculation, a total of 123 parking spaces would be required. The applicant has provided a site plan that details 99 parking spaces. The zoning ordinance does allow for a reduction of parking spaces outside of the scope of acquiring a variance for that dimension or that number. The Planning Commission can approve site plans less the minimum required parking spaces. Additional findings, the Waterford Site Plan Department, Waterford Fire Department approval would be deferred and pending the final site plan review. The Planning Commission must approve the reduced parking space count. There are some issues that were identified at the time of the review which have been corrected. One of those being the comments related to the facades and those materials. And we have spoke and worked with the developer to provide better details or just in a more clear landscaping plan. And then finally, all proposed building mounted signs would require a sign permit prior to installation.
And before we get into the condition of site plan review, I just want to talk about in regards to the variance in regards to parking. If you remember correctly, when the applicant was in front of us in September, there was a discussion in regards to parking, and he provided the commission with sufficient detail to understand that a majority, or actually at 75% of certain two-bedroom units were only being rented by one person. So you, at that time, back in September, it was required for those two buildings that it was required to have 92 spaces. You allowed them to go down to 63 for those two buildings. I just want to give you a context because he's going on this new building, a smaller building of 16 units. He's looking to, again, what's required is, as noted, was 123, and actually it's 98 is being provided. So it's basically what he's seeing in current rentals that he has here in the city of Pontiac, actually over across the old dormitory, but also what he's seeing in other locations of his developments in certain sections of metropolitan Detroit. I just want to give you a context in regards to what you were looking at and considering back when we were looking at that parking requirements and discussing that. Okay? That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly here we have our conditions for site plan approval. One, the civil and engineering plan review by the city engineer and Department of Public Works. Final site plan approval pending approval from the Water Fire Department. And final site plan approval pending the resubmission of revised site plans that comply with all the comments provided in the site plan technical report. And that concludes the presentation for SPR 2203. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Would the applicant like to come and state name and address for the record? Add or?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment will be at the end after this applicant. Oh, okay. Yep. Public comments after this.
Evening, commissioners. Good to see you again, and welcome to the new members. I thank you for your service to the community, and I am glad to be back before you with an expansion of our previous plan. My name is Bill Chalmers. I'm at 145 South Livernois Road, number 310. It's in Rochester Hills, Michigan, 48309. With me is Billy Chalmers, who not only works with me, he's my son, and he's in charge of the apartment leasing for our organization. It was Billy who told us that we're getting a tremendous amount of demand with a project that we haven't even started marketing yet. The first phase of the apartments, which is actually the second phase, almost 3 years ago, I came before you all looking to redevelop the Midwest Baptist College. And I know some of you know this, but for the benefit of the new members, I thought it might be helpful if I go back in time a little bit. That Midwest Baptist College was vacant for almost 10 years. It was blighted. The previous owner had no idea what to do with it, which included the school and a chapel and a former dorm. Also, by way of introduction, I am chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals for Rochester Hills. I previously served on that city's Brownfield Redevelopment Committee, and I also used to serve on Shelby Township's Planning Commission. And ever since I've been in and out of City Hall, all I keep hearing about is how we need housing that's affordable, not necessarily affordable housing, but housing that's more affordable, and also a huge demand for workforce housing. So when my partners asked if I get involved with this project, they had already had PACE, which is elder care, during the day, but they didn't know what to do with the dorm. And because of my experience being in and out of City Hall, I said, I think I do. I think that if you, partner and general contractor, can keep the cost down so that I can rent these for $850 a month, I think that we could fill it up. And we were right. Billy leased it up in 9 months. And that is the So we had a lease signed with Pace, which kicked off the project. We were able to turn the dorm into 2-bedroom apartments, mostly all 2-bedroom apartments. And also with that land, with that project came this land and that land, which is vacant now and will remain vacant for the foreseeable future. So you all were kind enough to approve these 2 buildings in September. And since that time, we've completed our marketing plan. This project will now be known as Westwood Apartments for primarily 3 reasons. A, it's west of Woodward. B, it is the western portion of our land. And C, we were able to integrate some wood and wood-like materials into the construction of these buildings. So Westwood Apartments, www.westwood248.com. We're not ready to launch the marketing yet, but we will in May. And what we found was, as Vern spoke to, these are all 2-bedroom apartments except for 2. And of the 24 apartments, 75% of those folks took 1-bedroom apartment, or took a 2-bedroom apartment even though it's 1 person. And so we asked questions. Why is that? Well, at that price point, and it was just released, the study was just released by the 2022 Renter Preferences Survey Report by the National Multifamily Housing Council. They found that the number one thing that renters want is more space. So we kind of found by default that they're taking 2-bedroom apartments only as 1 person. That second bedroom is being used for a home office because people are commuting less. We have 3 students. They were using it as their study room. And then some of the younger folks that have us, they use it as a gaming room. So rather than have more space in each room which is 1 bedroom, they prefer to have 2 bedrooms for that type of separation from their other activities. So we'll get back into the parking in a little bit, but that's kind of an overview as to why. And since we last met in September, the first 2 buildings are under construction. The first building, we're about to top it off probably next week with a 3rd floor and the roof going on the 3rd floor. And then the second, if this weather holds up, we'll be able to pour the slab for that second building. And if you are also kind, then we will roll right into the 3rd building in a quick succession because we're still in this housing crisis. We do have men and women that want to work on sites, and pricing, although pricing has greatly increased, it's still at a manageable level that we can pull this off, assuming that we continue to act in a proper business-like manner. Back to the demand. How many sign calls have you actually gotten?
92 sign calls without a sign.
Yeah, so we still call them sign calls in our business, but we don't even have sign up marketing the property. Somehow they're finding us and getting to him, and we're logging their names. A lot of the area employers are interested, certainly Pace employees who are right next door so they can walk. Menards, the general manager, is interested in make sure his employers know. We also met with Amazon, United Wholesale Mortgage, the hospitals. All of them they can't get enough of this. They can't wait to get in. And at these price points, I'm still going to start at under $1,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 bathrooms, brand new appliances, brand new construction, balconies, patios. We think that'll fill up really quickly, and we'll be able to add even more residents to the city of Pontiac. We'll certainly have new construction. Of course, parking will be ample based upon what we talked about. We're still adjacent to the golf course, so we have those views. And taking into account the discussion that we had last time about building facade, and we do have, it's all going to be 100% of hard surface, Nichiha panels. But rather than have it all Nichiha, which is fiber cement, we also are going to include hardy board, which is also fiber cement. So all 3 buildings will be 100% of solid surface. I have samples here if you'd like to see them. In addition to different materials, we also have staggering protrusions along with reveals, different colors. Those are the actual grays that we'll be using, by the way. And protrusions, the reveals, oh, and the roof line is staggered. As you can see here, this one shows it really well. So we don't even have a straight flat roof line. We've staggered the roof lines. So with 3 buildings, they're going to look very much different. We certainly didn't want a cookie cutter approach to this. In this day and age, we can do better, and we think we are. The other item that came up in September was the discussion of the HVAC units. And there was a thought that, are these like motel units that stick out or even from a window? They don't. They're completely inset. The only thing that you see is the screen for air intake. And an example of that is so it's just below the window, it's just a screen. It doesn't stick out at all. And we have found these to be extremely economical. Also, when you have when you have couples in an apartment unit, some people like it warmer, some people like it colder. We found them to be extremely functional. And the other thing that's nice about them is that if there's ever any type of part failure, they can be easily swapped out versus having to change a whole system. Also, in terms of keeping ductwork clean and in terms of air quality, these are a lot better. We clean them twice a year, and we simply clean a filter that's in there versus having to deal with anything that might be in the ductwork of an entire building. The staff report, the staff findings mentioned landscape plan was not legible. I apologize for that. We have since resubmitted, and I hope the new one is legible. We feel we have a registered landscape architect that drew it. We were happy with it, and we have every reason to believe that it complies with code. The sod materials, the sheet also talks about, or the submission package that you got, one sheet was incorrect. It's the last sheet that speaks to 100% of the solid surface with a combination of Nichiha and hardy board. And then parking. So in terms of extrapolating that 75% of 2 apartment renters only use one of the bedrooms, these are the findings that we came up with, which I had resubmitted after the package went out. I'm not sure if it got to the planning commissioners. Okay. So based upon that analysis, and believe me, the last thing I want as an owner, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that I am owner and developer, and I intend on holding this for a long time. Billy leased 819, and he lives there, and my daughter lives there as well. So I'm about as all in this neighborhood as you could possibly be. It's extremely important to me. I mean, he's great, but you should see his sister. I mean, she's... I visit her often. Pardon me?
You're not picking favorites now, are you?
Well, Daddy's girl. So I don't want a parking issue, and we found a way in working with the engineers and in working with Byrne and Donovan that do we have to make all that pavement? If with the thoughtful design that we came up with, we really think we can achieve proper parking, but now we still get to have the screen space, and we're not making that impermeable. Otherwise, we're now bringing parking around there, and then we're dealing with cars, and then we're dealing with screen and all that. I think that if you all are see what we're doing here, and based upon our experience, I think that we'll be completely fine without adding a bunch of asphalt that probably not going to be used based upon this trend. And like I said, the apartments aren't getting smaller, they're only getting bigger. And at this price point, under $1,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment, people can afford to have 2 bedrooms with one person renting it, or maybe even a couple that then will use that other office or that other room as a home office. So it's a win-win as far as we feel. So if you are so kind to approve this one, this is an amendment to the original site plan of last September, then we can keep on track. The other thing I didn't mention, Vern mentioned it briefly, we went with 2 stories for this building because for 2 reasons. One is it's going to be less units, which allows us to have more green space. Also, we felt the aesthetics on looking at it from Gulf Drive are much better, because while the 819 is technically 3 stories, one is halfway subgrade. So when you're standing on Gulf Drive and you're looking at both of them, you're going to have 2 stories essentially. Then you go to the larger buildings in back with the pace to the left if you're looking south, and then with our apartment buildings that have already been approved to the right. So we thought that was a much better gradual look to this development versus having a 3-story right there at Gulf Drive. It just seemed a little stark to us, and we hope that you agree and approve this amendment to that site plan. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Ball, do you have any questions or comments? Commissioner McGinnis, do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you. When we're looking at the retention pond on this aerial schematic, is there a walk path that separates 2 parts of it? Can you let me know what I'm looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in initial design development, I asked the same question. It's not. It's a 4-bay and a back bay. So when one fills up, then it goes to the other. I would love to have a walkway, but in terms of engineering and health and safety, believe me, I asked many times, but it just becomes too complicated. We end up eating up more of the retention pond, and then as was brought up earlier with Mr. Northcross, that we have to be very mindful of retention, being able to drain all of our water on site, minimizing the outflow through the Water Resources Commission, who you had mentioned earlier is very, very difficult. No, I shouldn't say difficult. They do their job extremely well.
Very diplomatically put. For residents, is there any new cyclist infrastructure that's being offered in terms of bike racks or other amenities for residents that will incentivize that opportunity for alternative transportation or recreational options?
Yes, that's another good question. We have an bike rack that we did install at the 819. It's full all the time. So we know that there's a need for that, and we like to satisfy the needs of our residents. So we will have 1 or 2 or even 3 there, especially because part of the appeal of this development is the walkability or bikeability to Village at Bloomfield. And one of our tenants already at the 819 works at Menards, and she literally walks to work, and it's fantastic. So yeah, there is a need for bikes. I would have to check with the project manager. I'm not quite sure if we have at least 1.
That segues into my next question. The documentation provided to us references an easement to the Village at Bloomfield. How would a resident of the Westwood Apartments access or utilize the Village at Bloomfield and all of the many developments that are associated with it?
By way of history, and I'm glad I have the opportunity to speak to this because I was very pleased that we were able to pull this off. Village at Bloomfield is controlled by Redico. American House is controlled by Redico. I say controlled because they're not actually the owner. It's owned by a different group, but they are the development agent. Thanks. Thank you. The fire department and the sheriff correctly identified that their response times from this area to get over to this area were too long. They had to go around Gulf Drive and then come out to Telegraph around Roadside and then come back down again. And they were very concerned about the response times. So they approached us and said, look, will you build a road from here to here, and that allow us to, or pardon me, this one right here, that's in place now, $300,000 worth that we built, and Redico and I shared the costs. And we essentially allow the fire department and the sheriff's department to use it. Then, while those discussions, we said, of course, we want to help the community. If that's what the fire department and sheriff's department wants, then we're happy to comply. Then Redico and I got together, and Redico said, well, maybe we want our people to go out here. And I said, okay, well, maybe my people want to go to the Village at Bloomfield. So it's a little bit more than a handshake agreement, even though it took a year and a 13-page document with lawyers. Because if, for whatever reason, if our people are annoying Redico or vice versa, we can just set it right back to just sheriff and fire department. But our people are using it every day, and it's not even a maximum use yet because still American House is under construction and people are concerned about construction materials and nails and things like that. But when Redico is done and American House is up and it's all beautifully landscaped and lit, you can see some of the light pole bases are in place. It's going to be absolutely magnificent to be able to walk back in there. And a lot of our talking with area employers are the folks that work in that area, and hopefully we can have some of them as tenants.
Does that roadway, for lack of a better word, also provide for sidewalks for pedestrians, or are they essentially informally utilizing the pavement if they were seeking to, like that one tenant that works in Menards walking?
Yeah, that's not my land. I'm not exactly sure if a sidewalk was required.
It wasn't as part of the access to what we call the JDC, Joint Development Agreement for the Village of Bloomfield, obviously between Bloomfield Township and the City of Pontiac, is set up in a way that I believe that road was at one time going to be, when it was owned by the City of Pontiac, or the golf course was, to go out towards Golf Drive directly, but obviously that changed hands, so that became privately owned. So right now, Hood Road is just a roadway. It does not have any sidewalks on it. There is conversations potentially with Redico to see if they'd be willing to put some sidewalks along there. Right now, we're trying to figure out how that will work in regard, because it crosses some areas in regards to wetlands and so forth. And right now, we have an upcoming meeting where the Eagle is coming in to make some improvements and also removing some sections of boardwalk within that area. So at that time, we're hoping we can get some conversations going in regards to some walkways along that, what we call Hood Road. Okay?
Thank you. That's helpful context. I think they're great long-term benefit to current and future residents to be able to access the amenities that the JDA or whatever, the Joint Development so-and-so offers.
JDC.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think the Westwood name is very compelling. I think that the demand is absolutely there, as the market has already demonstrated. When I was a younger man at Oakland University, I did once work at Webster School. I did not learn square dancing there. I did not square dance with my teacher there, but I did once work there. But in my younger days at Oakland University, there were limited options, but still the options that existed in the early to mid-2000s for apartment life. Pontiac was very competitive and viable because a part of the affordability. So if you can match quality living options still being price point competitive, I truly think that there is much more room for growth. This won't have any bearing in terms of my favorable decision tonight, but do you want to share anything in terms of Westwood 3.0 or 4.0 or other? What is your long-term vision or growth potential beyond what our current phases have before us?
Well, one comment on the OU. The students that we've had so far, and there's been 4, they're all Grizzlies. And we have a very good relationship with Glenn McIntosh and Kathleen Spencer, who is the head of nursing there. So we look forward to having as many Grizzlies at Westwood as possible. In terms of future growth, as much as I love development and serving the community, I'm also conservative and like to make sure that we fill these up first before we start deploying resources somewhere else. But if this is successful, we have an extraordinarily good relationship with the City of Pontiac. Like I told you before, I'm all in, personally, professionally, and if there's more opportunities, then we're all in. We'll continue to be all in.
Well, for those that hear the sound of my voice, if you have a viable business interest in providing affordable but quality apartment rental options, Pontiac, Michigan is a very viable place for you to explore further. That's not limited to students. That is not limited to those that are even currently in the workforce. American House, obviously just around the corner, is a retirement and senior living option. There is just so much room for Pontiac residents to be able to remain Pontiac residents by having more choices, and then for us to having former residents return and those make Pontiac their home, and this could be a great first foot in the door. So thank you very much for choosing Pontiac. Thank you for expanding the footprint. I look forward to learning more about what other amenities and how it will cohesively fit into what is obviously a very evolving section of our community. But I do look forward to seeing the progress continue and more quality, affordable apartment options. I mean, the demand is so high. I live just over here, right next to City Hall, and they built the Winston Commons and Mechanic and Douglas and Huron. I cannot tell you how many calls I got from Pontiac residents or people looking for homes for their family. Just, are they available yet? Are they for rent? Who do I contact? And that was just anecdotally word of mouth, as that bears out that they're on the hunt, and the demand is very high. So I look forward to in this particular corner of our city and other areas where we can expand our residential options and diversifying our housing and apartment stock. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cross, do you have any comments, questions?
Well, the question is, we're looking now at 99 spaces
Yes, sir.
being proposed. Okay. That's, I have occasion, I have a son who now lives in D.C., so I have occasion to get to Washington, D.C. And if I'm correct, Washington, D.C. is what, about 600,000 and change in terms of population, I think it is, and about 49 square miles. Whereas Pontiac is about 60,000 residents and about 25 square miles. And when I start to look at the difference of services that are available, when you start to reach certain densities, it becomes very compelling for companies to come in because there's so many people in a certain square area. At the same time, though, we're not quite at some of those higher densities. We're climbing, we're going there. So it's that transition, that walk through. So that's why I wanted to ask about the number of parking spaces, because we are in that transition. One of the services that are often provided when you hit high densities are mass transportation. My son doesn't even want a car. He doesn't have a car, doesn't want a car, doesn't need a car in D.C. He doesn't want to own a car. He doesn't even want to care about that expense. And that's great. And they're at that density where mass transportation works. But we're not quite there. So, but hopefully in the future we will be there. So looking at the items, just wanted to be sure of the number of parking spaces. Do like the plans that I see so far, and I do see a wall. Oh, one other question. Hood Road, I believe it is. That's still a private road, technically. I know at one time we were talking about putting a gate across it with a lockbox for the fire department.
Yeah, that is technically the lockbox is on my land, where that access drive is, and that is that if for some reason Redico wasn't happy with the activity, then a lockbox would go on it, and the only people that would have the key would be the fire department and the sheriff. So they could still use it, but the general public couldn't. But so far, so good. Even when there's construction going on in American House.
Yeah, and right now there's no gate or any, or if there is a gate, it's open.
The gate has remained open since I built it, and there's a Knox box there.
Ah, okay.
So if it gets locked, the sheriff and the fire department already have the key.
Okay. So.
But it wouldn't be done in the middle of the night. I mean, there'd be conversations with Captain Ewing and with Chief Peruski. But that option is there. We hope nobody utilizes it, but that was the best we could do with the agreement with Redico.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shepard, do you have any comments, questions?
I'll be brief, but I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's nice to see somebody that brings up the materials. A lot of times everyone's just trying to bring in the cheapest possible price. What are your price points on your apartments? You said about 1,000 for a 2-bedroom.
Yes, sir. Yeah. The first building will be $995 a month, and we'll see what we're still dealing with some construction costs, but we hope to be around that number for this entire phase 2 development.
And how many 1-bedrooms and how many 2-bedrooms?
It's a break 75-25. So each building in the 24 units, we've got 16 2-bedrooms and 8 1-bedrooms.
And how much are the 1-bedrooms?
1-bedrooms, those are the $999 for the 1-bedrooms. Yeah, but I think the 2-bedrooms were starting at $1,050. Okay. So still right around $1,000.
I also like your explanation about the parking. You know, there's nothing worse than seeing wasted parking spaces.
Right.
I'm a fan. You know, I do stuff in the downtown, and I hate extra parking. It looks ugly. I like the thought of keeping the green up there. So I don't think you're gonna have any problem with it. You guys already know that. So.
Well, my hat's off to whomever put that into the zoning code, because every other city it'd be a variance and it'd be very challenging. But the fact that Planning Commission has the purview to see something like this, understand it, is extremely helpful in getting business done in the city of Pontiac.
If you don't have enough parking, then you lose.
That's right. That's right. Nobody's more motivated.
You're smarter than that. So.
Right. And in retail, you see, the parking lot's really only used for 2 weeks in December.
They're all waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice stuff.
Mr. Barlow, do you have any comments, questions?
Bill, thanks for coming back. It's been a very long process. Yeah, it's almost like Groundhog Day. From people that were here before you. We've been here. We've heard a lot. It was very challenging, but we're glad we're here today. If you did need more parking, you've got that space if you needed to expand on your property. If you found that in the
there is land, but hopefully we don't need it.
Right. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, and thank you for improving the materials. I appreciate that as well.
Well, and just so you know, when I came before you was the beginning of September. The biggest spike in construction costs had just occurred in August. So we were very, very concerned about what we could do. Once the general contractor said that we'd be okay using the Nichiha and the Hardy board, that's when I called. My first call was to Vern and said, look, he said, are you going to be able to comply with the 30% requirement? And I said, we're doing 100.
Thank you.
Of course, we want to build a quality product. Again, I own it. I'm a long-term owner, and I need to be able to continue to rent it.
Yes, so we like that things look good for the people who live in our city. We deserve it. We all deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Payne, do you have any comments or questions?
Good evening.
Hi, Ms. Payne.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, I had probably about 8 or 9, but you answered probably about 7 of those, and I only have about 2 left. Okay. So one was in regards to, well, what Mr. McGinnis, Commissioner McGinnis has spoke on in regards to Pontiac residents. And we had spoken on that when you came before us, and we kind of thought maybe that during this phase that you would have present something that the Pontiac residents could afford, because there are a lot of young people that are working, but they are not making $60,000 a year or $30,000 a year, and they need a place to rest their heads also. And I know that, but I just, again, like Mr. McGinnis has said, is that kind of put that in your head so that hopefully on your next go-round, you'll have some kind of consideration in regards to that.
And we are very mindful of that. We have done a lot of analysis on that, and we think we found a balance between a quality product that is affordable without getting into affordable housing. And by definition, this rent puts us in the affordable housing category, even though we have absolutely no government subsidies. Mm-hmm. And our organization is not set up to handle government subsidies. You're looking at most of the organization right here, and I have subcontractors for everything else. Mm-hmm. So we're just a small mom and pop, and I understand that takes a tremendous amount of staff and experience. And frankly, as I spoke to earlier, I'm very hesitant to get anything that I haven't done before. But because we were successful in that first phase, we're able to have a low land basis, which allows us to still keep that price point 20% lower than Crystal Lake and half as much as 24 Bloomfield. So we'll do the best we can to serve that market, because that market is not served either by either of those two buildings. And Crystal Lake has a wait list, 8-month wait list at Crystal Lake. So there is a niche. It might not be the exact niche, but it is a niche that we're serving, and hope we all feel good about that.
Okay. In regards to the road there, with Pace being a portion of the owner, on the other, what is that, the south side, north side?
To the right on that plan?
Right. Now, the road is actually very narrow, I noticed. So are there any plans in widening that? Seems like it's about maybe 1.5 lane.
There aren't any plans to widen it, but that's why we did pay for and constructed a sidewalk. So anybody who is at the school can walk on a sidewalk to get to the road. But as you may know from the previous organization and the city's arrangement for PIREC there, that it was the city's obligation to maintain that road. So we just got it back not even 2 months ago. But everything's been engineered, and while we can't do anything about 2 lanes of cars, which I don't think we've ever had an issue. Yeah, we have two cars, but we did put the walking path in so that any folks could walk, and we do get lots of walkers even during construction. There's a lot of walkers who walk in that area, which makes me nervous during construction.
But what would you say that most of your residents, what cities are they from?
Mostly, it's certainly Oakland County, but I can't tell you how thrilled and proud I am that we have 30 new residents in the city of Pontiac because we are converted an old dorm. And if we have 64 more units and we're averaging 1 to 1.5 per unit, we could potentially bring another 70 or 80 people into the city that aren't there now, or maybe aren't there now. But I can tell you from the employers we've spoken to, we were shocked and amazed when we met with Amazon. And they said that not many of the people who work there live in the city of Pontiac. And we're working like hard to turn that around.
That's it. Okay.
I do not have any questions. May I have a motion? This isn't a public hearing for this application. The public hearing is just an overall public comment at the end.
Oh, I thought you said.
All our public hearings were at the beginning for the rezoning and special exception. Okay.
I make a motion.
Yay! Go for it, Mike.
I make a motion to approve the preliminary site plan SPR 22-03 for 819 West LLC, care of Cartessa Real Estate Company, and 815/821 Gulf Drive, parcel identification number 64-19-05-102-015, and allow the planning manager authorization to grant final site plan approval.
I'll support it.
Thank you. Roll call?
Yes, Commissioner McGinnis.
Yes, to approve.
Commissioner Shepard.
Yes. Approved.
Chair Figley.
Yes, to approve.
Commissioner Northcross.
Yes, to approve.
Commissioner Parlov.
Yes, to approve.
Commissioner Payne.
Abstain.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Do we need to vote on the orientation special meeting, or what is that?
Yes, if you would, that'd be helpful. That way, we will hold a special meeting, and we were looking at, on the agenda, it shows the 16th. I was reminded that I have to be at another meeting. Actually, it's in regards to a public town hall, actually related to the what we call the Clinton River Connector project, which is looking through downtown and getting public input. So that's going to be on the 16th. So I'm asking to hold a special meeting of the Planning Commission on the 23rd, that Wednesday. We're looking to do orientation for everybody to kind of remind my reappointed members a few things, and obviously probably shed some light on with my new appointed members that are coming on board this year. And also we'll be voting for officers for chair and vice chair at the same meeting.
Will that be at 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock on the 23rd?
I'm sorry?
6 p.m.?
6 o'clock.
Okay, all right. All right, do we need a motion and a vote then for that, or is that just a general?
I would like, yes, if you would.
May I have a motion?
Motion for the 23rd, yes.
Yeah. I make a motion that we add to our meeting schedule a meeting on, what is that, March the 23rd at 6 p.m.?
Correct.
Here at City Hall for Planning Commissioner orientation.
Support.
Roll call?
Commissioner Roughcross?
Yes, to approve.
Commissioner Payne?
Yes.
Commissioner Parlov?
Yes, to approve.
Commissioner Shepard?
Yes, I may be out of town, but yes, to approve.
Okay. Commissioner McGinnis?
Yes, to approve.
And Chair Fagley?
Yes, to approve.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, next item is public comment. I will open to public comment if anyone would like to speak.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is HBO Maxey. I'm a resident of Pontiac. Having been in Oakland County over 65 years, beginning in Royal Oak Township, down through the years to being a permanent homeowner taxpayer in the city of Pontiac. I have a few comments. Number one, to tell you who I am, my background, community activist, social worker. I worked for Governor Milliken in years in community revitalization in Detroit, planning. I have a lot of experience. Lately, I've been with 3 or 4 more organizations, but I can let the Promo Zone kind of ease now. Chris Norcroft is sitting there, so I have to do too much effort. As being said, I'm looking at Webster. We're talking about Webster Community Center. Do you realize that 75% of our youth, African Americans living in Oakland County, living in the city of Pontiac? When you look at the incarceration of the adults, and when you look at Children's Village of our youth, as the community paper labor us, and throughout the states of America, and particularly here in Michigan, underserved, underprivileged, poverty, stricken-ridden. Now, I would like to ask the gentleman who walked out after he gave his presentation, what about safety at this Webster Center? What about span of control? How many of the staff people are there are sensitive, ethnic sensitivity? It must be there. What kind of curriculum? Are you going to play basketball all day? Do you have some educational components? After all, the news media and the paper have labeled these kids as underprivileged, undeveloped, and it comes with the community. So I am just wondering, does this program call for multicultural? I don't know too much about it. Like I said, the gentleman, he left after he made his presentation. But again, my point, safety, the program, education, health, span of control, and a multicultural staff. Too often, Pontiac always has someone to come in and with their stats. Of course, one of my degrees is sociology. You know, I'm a sociologist. I do a lot of data research, and I have a lot of facts. Come in and dump on our community. Now, I'm not too sure if the people in Western that area have been talked to. I don't know. When I said talk to, do they have information as to this particular entity coming into the neighborhood? I have a lot of questions about that. Can I move forward to Golf Drive?
Well, usually we have 2 minutes given to each.
Okay.
But they're a private entity that are building multifamily homes, apartments, and renting them. We don't really, as a body, have any ability to regulate anything that's done as long as it meets the zoning ordinance and the building codes. So I'm not sure what you're asking of this board.
Well, one thing, if I must go to my school, I'll leave, but one thing about it is the sensitivity. I wake up to serve people in this community. Over 50 years, I want the people to have good service, period. Deliver service and inclusiveness. Okay, thank you very much for the time. I won't comment on Golf Drive. But this Webster, we're going to have a look at that.
Well, thank you for your comments, and I appreciate your time and your patience today.
You might have a good hearing, but you have a very soft, sweet voice.
I said, thank you for your comments, and I appreciate your time and patience this evening.
It's coming before the council, right?
Yes. No, Westwood will not be coming in front of the first two. The first two applications will be, though.
No problem. But those are just my sincere comments.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Chuck Johnson, as usual. I'm very pleased now to come back to the new edition of our planning commissioners, the new faces. Very welcome to see you there. Our senior four. I'm hoping that it stays exactly like it is. Ashley has been an anchor in this planning department, and Lucy, and of course Mr. Northcross, experienced individuals who've been at this table for a number of years. I'm very pleased to be able to submit that this commission is a great part of our government in this city. It gives the citizens an opportunity to know what's coming and how it's coming and give an overview. And it goes in conjunction with our new mayor, Mayor Grimel, and our Pontiac City Council, who is all brand new. And of course, our council person, Chair McGinnis on this commission. It gives way to what I feel is a very promising new city of Pontiac. We're going to move up and forward, and unlike Mr. Maxey, I'm not going to take too much of your time. I know that it's 9 o'clock or a little after, but I'm very pleased, very, very pleased to acknowledge this commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
All right, if there are no further public comments, would anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you're going to close the meeting, I have an item, but
No, go ahead. Go ahead. That's, if you have anything to say, the public comments is the time to say it, so.
Well, I just wanted to celebrate the service on the Planning Commission of Dane Thomas and Hazel Cadd, whose time has concluded. And I really wanted to just celebrate and champion those of you here this evening who have been reappointed or appointed to the Planning Commission. It is a substantial investment of time and consideration that goes into it. It is not lost on the City Council and the Mayor's office how much time you invest into each particular proposal, site plan, a zoning consideration. You research it, you visit the sites on site, you dig deep. These are not slight or small documents that are reviewed. These are substantial proposals that have long-lasting implications, and for those that have been on the Planning Commission, you've taken that role very seriously, and it's to the community's benefit. Thank you for your willingness to keep serving. Obviously, the City Council unanimously voted on the appointments and reappointments last night, and then very quickly, here we are the next day after serving at the first meeting. So I just wanted to, on behalf of our community, but also specifically the City Council and Mayor, thank you for that, and that it is not lost on us how significant it is that you've been willing to sign up for your first 3-year go-around or for a continued go-around. It's a big deal. And Mayor Greimel, I asked him multiple times, was he sure that he did not want to sit on it as our elected official, who was the one slot. So for the last 8 years, the previous mayor has been a member of the Planning Commission. Prior to that, the former deputy mayor on the Jakowski administration, Mr. Glass, had served on the Planning Commission. But the mayor was very intentional that he wanted to have a city council person because of so much of what comes through the Planning Commission ultimately does go through the City Council, and he wants it to be very open line of communication for myself to be able to be a conduit from the council's perspective to this commission, and then vice versa, being able to inform my colleagues about what is coming and what the rationale for the Planning Commission was, and the hard questions you've already asked, the improvements and considerations that were already made and honed and refined to a proposal, so that way that could be amplified at the City Council decision-making table. So I wanted to offer to the Commission the rationale that Mayor Greimel had in making that a little bit different appointment when it comes to my seat as well, and I look forward to the collaboration and hard work that's to come, because it is a commission that is involved in so many important developments and matters that come before the city. So I thank you for taking this role seriously and being willing to still do it. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Any comment, real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I received my application for absentee ballot. This comes about every election. The city clerk will send out this application. It needs to be signed. You send it back in, and that puts one in line to get their absentee ballot to vote. And I would urge everyone in the city of Pontiac who's able to vote to vote. It's a wonderful city that we have here. And one of the things we can do to improve the city is just to vote. I have some preferences about how I'd like to see you to vote, but bottom line is to vote. When we vote, we all win, no matter the outcome. And we have to be conscious about that. We have to talk about that. We have to share that with our family, our friends, and our neighbors. We need to vote. So take this opportunity. I would recommend voting absentee. It gives one a wide space in which they can get the ballot, they can look at it, they can consider it, and get it back in, as opposed to trying to vote at the polls where you only have one day. So I wanted to bring that up. Be on the lookout. If you haven't gotten your absentee ballot, if you're not on the permanent absentee ballot list, visit your city clerk, get on it, and get that absentee ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Good evening again, everyone. In regards to our training for the planning, our planning commission, I've attended many from Lansing, and one of the things that you would be amazed at what a lot of these cities, what they're accomplishing by engaging the applicants that come before them and hold them accountable for also helping the city and not just taking funds out of the city but bringing something to the city. And I think that we really need to get on board with holding our applicants responsible for also doing something to help the city within improving it. And it also improves their businesses also. So I would like for us to really kind of look into that and do lot more. Maybe having one of Southfield, I think, is one really big. And maybe we should have someone from another city to come in and do a training session with us, just showing how they have actually received fundings from companies that have come to the city. So that is very important, and I think that we need to start doing that. So, thank you.
Yes.
This is my first time speaking into one of these things. But many of you know me already. My name is Bernita Duvall, and I'm also the president of Main Street Pontiac. So I do a lot of service in the community. I am very humbled by this appointment, and I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you. All right, I will close public comments, and may I have a
But happy recent birthday, Ashley Piper.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn our very first new collection of planning commissioners.
May I have a second?
I have, before y'all leave, I'm going to give you your oath of office.
Okay.
Except for Ms. Duvall, obviously you got to get yours done by the clerk, then he'll give you yours. You need to sign it.
Okay.
And then you need to get a copy back to the clerk. Okay?
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.